Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 299, our 6-year anniversary show. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Jim, the leader of the Mustard Corps, so says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You-Know.
Happy anniversary, 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 happy anniversary.
Aren't people supposed to sing that to us?
Well, possibly.
On this episode, we're going to be joined partway through by friend of the show, Darrell Taylor. We're going to be discussing books like Batgirl number 7, Saucer Country number 1, Red Lanterns number 7, and Huntress number 6. We also have a couple listener voicemails. We have the remainders of our contest entries. We had some audio contest entries that I did not air, Jim, back when we did the contest. So I want to make sure to have them on the podcast. So if anybody didn't get to hear them, that they get to be on there. Next week, we'll be continuing. Actually, we'll be starting off with Knightfall, Part 1, and we'll continue on voicemails. So we'll be doing voicemails every week until we get completely caught up with them. But we got some great voicemails on this episode as well. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, Jim, we're talking Batgirl. And Batgirl Hardcover Volume 1, The Darkest Reflection, is available for a special discount of 50% off. The hit DC Comics New 52 series that brought Barbara Gordon back as Batgirl is collected for the first time, and this collects issues 1 through 6. So actually, if you pick up issue 7 to listen to this episode, you can, in the hardcover format, $22.99 regularly, 50% off only $11.49. That's a trade paperback price for a hardcover. You know, I mean, that's 6 issues in there, so it's a meaty hardcover. And I want to thank DCBService.com for supporting our show. Want to remind everyone to shop at DCB Service's digital stores. They've got various digital comic stores, not just for DC, but across the board. And if you click on them, you get a 5% discount towards your DCB Service order for ordering your digital comics through them. So you can earn that 5%. So that's great. They're already giving you that amazing discount, like that 50% off, but you can earn an additional 5% off of your total order by ordering your digital books through them as well. Over at InStockTrades.com, Jim, starting next week, Knightfall, and we're going to be doing it for 3 weeks. You can get Batman Knightfall Part 1, The Broken Bat, regularly $19.99, 40% off, only $11.99. Knightfall Part 2, Who Rules the Night, $17.99 regularly, 40% off, only $10.79. And Knightfall Part 3, Night's End, $19.99 regularly, 40% off, only $11.99. I want to thank InStockTrades.com for continuing to support us. Remember, orders of $50 or more gives you free shipping. I always said orders of dollars or more. I don't know what that even means.
What kind of podcast is this? Why, it's a trap! Yes, after 6 years of planning, my ingenious podcast trap has come to fruition and has caught you, my intrepid listener. Despair, as your enjoyment drains away as we review comics, going in-depth into plot lines, story twists, and nefarious whatnot. 300 episodes lulls you into a false sense of security, and now no superhero will save you. Oh, if only you had read the reviewed comics first, and come back later, you might not have fallen into the diabolic machinations of the spoiler.
Now I can get out of here.
Jim, our first review this episode, we're going to talk about Batgirl number 7. Gail Simone is the writer. Ardian, and it's Syaf. I know I'm just going to butcher that. Alitha Martinez are the pencilers. Vicente Fuentes is the inker. Ulysses Areola, colors. Dave Sharp, letterer. And Katie Kubert, associate editor, Bobby Chase, editor, and Batman created by Bob Kane. Apologies in advance for name butchery because I really love this creative team. The art team does a great job on this book. I think the book looks spectacular. And obviously, we're huge fans of Gail Simone's writing. Batgirl number 7. This one was really good for me because I didn't know what to expect from the cover, with the whole grotesque drowning. I just know that, it's Batgirl, more of what I really love about the Barbara Gordon character. One of the things that I really like that Gail Simone does is there's a nice distinguishing that this isn't Batwoman. I'm adoring the Batwoman book. I think that character's great. I love that Batgirl doesn't feel like, the other woman book or anything like that. Barbara Gordon is a very distinctive personality with very distinctive qualities. Everything that I liked about her as Oracle is there. And this issue so hit a home run for me when we've got Dinah Lance in there as well, seeing that these two do have a friendship. Because I didn't know what their friendship... We've seen them appear together since the New 52 has begun, but I didn't know that they had this kind of close relationship where you're getting these moments where she goes to Dinah for a consultation. What are your feelings about this issue, though? How are you liking this series so far? Where are you at?
Oh, this has been just an absolute joy for me. And a lot of stuff you're saying, I'm completely echoing on it. I love seeing Dinah and Barbara together, and it was just seeing the comfort and the friendship and just the masks coming off and just them being them, but also, Dinah knows Barbara. She knows there's something wrong. She knows, what makes her friend tick, and she's the one who kind of helps her with a little, a friendly nudge, if you will, if you can call it a chop, a punch, and a flip, a friendly nudge. But in this circle, you kind of can. So I like seeing just that level they took it in the fighting. It was, it wasn't just a, light, tippy tap tapping. There was actual punches thrown. There was kicks. There was a full contact, and I liked seeing that. But they never lost that friendship side of it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. That was one of the things that I really enjoyed about it. As a kid growing up, I always geeked out. They would have, Hal and Barry, and, they would have Hal and Ollie, and Batman and Superman, and, Barbara would be friends with Supergirl. I liked the idea that these people, while you would have these, Brave and the Bold team-ups where the first-time meetings of these characters, and I'm not just saying in Brave and the Bold, I'm talking about in their own books, and, in backup stories and things like that, you have these various meetings of these characters where it'd be the first time. But then you also had characters that had met for years, and you knew they had a long-standing established relationship, and they were confidants. And sometimes those characters' appearances were not about the two of them fighting bad guys together. They were about the two of them showing us that they were friends. You know what I mean? These confidant moments are something, we're seeing a nice combat training sequence in a way that makes sense. This is a natural development from, we've got Barbara Gordon who's back in the game. She has been running around as Batgirl. She's been very successful running around as Batgirl, but we've known there's these things that from her traumatic experience from the Joker that have been preying on her. The thing that happened with the gun, and the mirror, and those situations with, psychologically we're seeing that this is a trauma she went through that has stuck with her. And she's not, one of the things I really like about it is she's not content with that. She's not content with the fact that I could be one step faster. I could have done one thing more. She takes responsibility in these situations where, quite frankly, anybody else who has done what Barbara Gordon has done as far as, donning a mask and trying to save lives and things like that, she's putting herself on the line to try and save people. So anything she's accomplished in and of itself, you can pat, depending on your feeling on vigilantes in general, but I'm just saying you can pat her on the back for risking her life to help others. In this case, though, the thing that just totally puts me in awe of this character is the sense of responsibility when she doesn't save everybody. She doesn't accomplish everything. And, having anything psychologically that's still sticking around from Killing Joke and her experience with that would be something that was holding her back. I love this idea. This is something I can't wait till we talk about Knightfall, because it was something I really liked in Night's End. This idea that, yes, it's one thing to know in your head how to fight. It's one thing to remember all the moves. It's one thing but if you don't have the muscle memory, if your body is not moving on its own, by itself, it's like instinctually knows what to do, there's that disconnect, that split second that can be the difference between you winning and losing. I've loved the vulnerability of Barbara Gordon every bit as much as I've loved the strength, because it's natural. It's a transition we want to follow. I feel like I'm connecting with her along the way. I'm admiring her strength as much as I'm admiring how she deals with her weaknesses. There's a humanity to that. And that's something that I'm really finding engaging here. I don't feel like at any point in time that she's a foreign character to me from who she was as Oracle. I feel this is that same girl. All the personality traits are there, everything I like. She's younger, but at the same time, I feel a strength to her from seeing this journey that she's going on and this sense of not giving up. That's one of the things I really do like about my favorite comic characters are the ones that don't give up even when things don't quite go their way. They're not content to just leave it at that. They keep trying to improve themselves, because I find that motivational, when I have a bad day or something like that. I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say I'm a little confused here. I can't tell if you're enjoying the book and enjoying the character.
I adore Gail Simone's writing because of everything I've just been saying. I got that Womanthology anthology. It's one of the Kickstarter campaigns, and she has a wonderful story in here about this little girl who encounters her brother's comic book collection, just happens to be in his room. And because the books aren't quite girly enough, she decides to take steps, and I'll leave it at that because it's kind of a little teaser and leave it that way. I follow Gail Simone's writing anywhere, whether it's, DC or independent or, work that she's doing over at Bongo for The Simpsons. I try to grab everything that she does just because I really enjoy this writer. And yes, I'm gushing over Batgirl because I absolutely positively adore this book.
One of the things that really does impress me with the book, especially, and this is something that we've seen a lot in Gail's books, are her writing style so fits with the art style. We're getting another great blending of a team, because when we're going over the names, we're apologizing for insulting them and butchering their names, but it's not just that; it is an actual respect and admiration towards all of the skills in this. Gail's given us a beautiful story, but the art team is really is bringing it to life, and that's something that I really enjoy when she gets the right team, art team, with her. You get some magic, and just right out the gate, opening page, we're showing Barbara being drowned, and we find out later grotesque, and we see all the backstory and whatnot behind it. But just this opening panel of just the look on her face as she's being drowned, the little bit bugged, kind of bugged out eyes a little bit as her head's going under. You got the water, you got just the way the colors are playing off. This is just a really cool opening where it has you going, ooh, what's going on here? Just catches you right from page one, and then just the action fight sequencing, just the way they're laid out. This was an absolutely wonderful book. Now, I enjoy the sequences between Barbara and her mother, and just Barbara dealing with that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going on with Jim and the mother, and just see why she left. That whole side story. But action sequences, combat fighting, just general the physical activity of the superhero are being told absolutely wonderfully in this book.
One of the things you commented about the cover, and I want to touch on that. Nowadays it's become very popular that you've got a cover artist. It's a different artist doing the covers. And I enjoy those artists, so please, this isn't a knock on them. One of the things I really like about this book, and I like that it's the internal creative team that's doing the cover art. Mm-hmm. That's something just for me. I think there's a nice flow from the cover then to the interiors. And it's just something I'm fond of. I'm not saying, and it's not a knock on books that have separate cover artists. I like those too. But in this particular case, I really enjoyed the flow. There was something about that, having that the same interiors team on the cover. Sometimes I find that when you've got different cover art, if I'm not used to the interior team, like especially when it's the first time opening a book, I sometimes find that a little bit jarring. Like you see one. You have this impression from the cover art of the style that you're going to have, then you open up the book, and it's different cover art. Now, it's different interior art, I should say. Now, I will say that if it's a great creative team and they're doing a great job on the book, by the time I'm done with the issue, I'm so totally into the interiors as well. But I do want to. It's something I do like about this book, and I wanted to note it. I like the flow. I think that just it's really great. I think this, and it's because I enjoy so much the team that's doing the interior work. Now, grotesque. Let's talk about grotesque. Do you think, in the fight with Grotesque, I love the fact that we see her dropped right into danger. And she's in a situation where this is it. If she didn't pull out the gadget when she did, this guy was going to drown her. So it really is her mind that giving her that split-second edge to survive. But she's getting to the point right now where survival's not enough for her. It's because, one of these times, if it keeps up like this, she's going to be dead. So I love that it's this particular pivotal moment that, makes her reflect on the fact that she needs to be training. She needs to be doing these things. But I love this. I'm Batgirl. I'm Barbara freaking Gordon. Just such a great moment when that thing shoots out, and I'm clever. I like when we've got these superheroes that it isn't just about punching. It isn't just about how much you can kick. It's also the fact that she's got a mind, and she is clever. There's something about that. It's a unique quality of her. I liked it when she was in the chair as Oracle. What are the things that we really liked about Oracle? Her ability to improvise, even though she was in the wheelchair. So if you're going to do a Batgirl book, you got to remember what it was that everybody loved about Oracle. And those are qualities for me that always connected me to her when she was in the chair. They're here. It's important to me. It's a balance that I really like in Gail Simone's writing. It's the sense of character. By the time I'm done with every single issue I read of this book, I really feel like Barbara's a friend. I feel like she's a character I'm riding along with. I feel like she's a character that, I want to high five. And there's times where I want to sit there and say, hey, don't give up. You feel like you're talking to her almost when you're riding along on her in these issues. And it's something that I just really, I particularly enjoy.
Oh, big time. And it's improvise, adapt, overcome. When you have these heroes that aren't metas, they're just regular people who are trained, they need to do little tricks. They need to do little stuff here and there to survive in this world. And I like the fact that this wasn't what the gadget was normally intended to be used for. That's her grappling gun. It's, swinging from building to building and all that. She, modified it, adjusted it how she needed to. That was, the desperation move. That was the Hail Mary pass. And that was a really cool way for her to get out of this situation. One, she's acknowledging, hey, I'm in trouble here. So she's not, it's not an arrogance to her. She knows her limitations. But two, she's not going to quit. She's not just going to lay down and let herself drown. She's going to fight back. She's going to lash out any way she can. And that always is just a sign of a hero. Sign of, it's the good guys. They're not going to quit. They're not going to lay down. And that's what you want out of a comic. That's what I want out of my characters. It's funny how, every time I read this book, I always think back to when I was a kid, how as a little kid, I wouldn't read a girl comic just because. And now when I read this, I'm thinking, these are some really cool characters. These are some really cool stories. This is, you're seeing some really great hero moments, some true dun-da-da moments in these comic books. And it's, I'm so glad that I'm not the same stupid kid I was, that I'm actually able to sit down and, give other books a try, give other things a style, other styles, and other just, go out there and just try, new things and, let myself just kind of be open for them.
I find that I don't care if the lead character is a male or female. What I care about is that the character feels real to me and unique. There's an authenticity to the character where I believe in the character, that I believe this character is somebody who would really do these things. I want to be pulled into their world. And I want to ride along with them, not ride on them. I caught myself as I was saying that earlier on. Barbara Gordon would so play punch buggy with my face if I tried anything. Yeah. But one of the things that I really enjoy in the books for me, it really is important during that experience. Like with that whole situation with Grotesque, when the mask came off and all that. I'm so busy trying to see Barbara escaping that situation because she's like, shake it off or you could be dead. I loved the internal dialogue that the first time through I didn't even start thinking about the fact that I don't know that this guy's ugly. Mm-hmm. Do you think he is?
No, probably not. The one thing I was wondering is could this be the Joker? But I doubt it. Just, the only reason why I was thinking that is because of the face covering, and we know he had his face cut off. Now, granted, this guy doesn't have green hair, but hair can be dyed, and I don't know. It was a thought that popped in my head just because of everything that's going on in this issue.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get that vibe. But that's not to say that you're wrong.
Well,
I was really fascinated with, because we see that situation. Is that page where it's no weird guy in the sewer? What does that make me? Now, the reason why his face is blurred out there is because he's vanishing, right? Not because you didn't take that there's like something missing, did you?
No, I took it that was the vanishing act.
Right, that's what I did too.
He's got his meta powers, and somehow he's able to do stuff, and that's part of the power.
I love that he's talking to her afterwards. Like there's an enigma to him. I like that there's that type of thing. He's a smart villain, and that's something that, even though he's smug and a little crazy, he's also intelligent. And I like villains like that because they're the ones that are going to get a little tricky with you. They're going to tell you, you're going to get a different kind of story to them based on their quirk than you would somebody who's completely off their rocker and chaotic. Mm-hmm. Like the Joker. Great example.
Yeah, and it was, there's like Joker styling to this guy. He's not completely crazy, psycho crazy, but what if the Joker developed a different personality? What if, because of having his face cut off, he's different? This guy still has the same quirks, still has the same bizarre nature to him, but he's different. He's not the same. He's obviously not the same Joker, but what if? And that was the thing that was just kept nagging in the back of my head. It came through like second read through, really. But it's just, and I'm not even going to sit here and hang my hat on that theory saying, yes, 100% that's what I think. But it is a thought that keeps bouncing around in my head.
Well, remember in Batman and Robin, he developed that other identity.
Right.
Where it really was, it seemed like a character who would be somebody that would be a confidant and a partner to Batman. Almost like in, some form of League of Batman kind of thing, So that character, I didn't see that character being the Joker.
Exactly.
So I'm just adding some weight to your, kind of belief. I don't know that that's where this is going. I don't know that I'm totally convinced of that, but I don't think it's a crazy possibility considering what we've seen with the character. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I also like the fact that we see Dark Vengeance written in the walls of the sewer. Mm-hmm. Misfit from Birds.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I was like, yes!
I wonder if we're going to see... I don't know if that was just a nod to the fans. If so, I loved the nod. But that's a character I would love to see in the New 52 at some point. So I don't know if we'll get the opportunity to see her or not, but I certainly know I would love to.
Hey, she'd fit. She would definitely fit in the New 52.
One of the things I really liked was when Dinah was analyzing Barbara's costume.
Yeah.
And admiring the tech, but also admiring that there would have to be some money behind that tech. Just showing that she knows her own equipment had to have cost her some bucks, but that this is a step up from it. It was kind of a neat nod to Barbara's relationship with Bruce Wayne.
Well, that has me wondering, does Dinah know Bruce Wayne is Batman? Is she in on the know?
I would say no. I would say that that's a pretty good indicator that she doesn't know, because otherwise wouldn't she have said, is that from your benefactor or is that from your...
All right.
I don't know. Yeah. I almost said mentor, but I don't know that that's really fair, because Barbara kind of started off on her own. I guess they're kind of partners, sort of. It's kind of interesting. What would you call that relationship? How would you label the relationship between Batgirl and Batman? Because it's not like the Robin and Batman relationship. And I wouldn't call them exactly partners. She's certainly not a sidekick. What would you call that relationship?
Oh, that's it is there. It's definitely is a mentoring relationship, but she's not a sidekick. Mm-hmm. She is her own hero, her own character. But I can't, because I'm trying to remember when there was a line that she had about, how Batgirl first started off as just kind of hanging around, and, trading jabs with, Robin, with Grayson. And it kind of made it sound like when she was first going through the ropes, she was there, with them. She was being trained by Bruce. She was learning, from him as well. It was kind of, I took it that how Tim Drake got the Robin title because he figured everything out, because he was able to basically assume the mantle of Robin. I'm assuming that's kind of how Barbara in this universe started.
I'm taking it's just like the classic Batgirl origin, where Batman and Robin were already running buddies, meaning Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson, and Batgirl just became Batgirl, and over time she eventually was let in on the secret.
And she was accepted, and she became part of the team.
Well, accepted's a strong word. I think a lot of what has been said, because they've shown in these issues that, Bruce didn't necessarily accept her at first. Remember, she thought that he was going to scold her, and this was going to be his opportunity to say, I was right all along, and that type of thing. Remember, he surprised her and all that in those moments? So I think the relationship here is pretty spot on to what I've always assumed was the relationship between Barbara and Bruce. That he didn't sanction her all the time, but yet they found those moments where when she was there, you couldn't help but give her a nod because she may have saved their lives. She may have been that split-second distraction. And just as many times, they ended up saving her. So I do think it's very much that kind of give and take, more innocent relationship when it first started. Then the world kind of changed.
Yeah.
Actually, no. You know what? That's not fair because we know this world wasn't so innocent. I don't know. It's an interesting. It's an interesting relationship, but I do think it's more of the elements of the classic. What about the ex-wife? I know we kind of glossed over that real quick, but I definitely want to talk about it because, to me, the handling of Jim Gordon in the New 52, I love that it pulled some of the best elements of what had been going on with the character right before the relaunch. All the stuff that Scott Snyder was doing, James Jr. is clearly here. So, I'm wondering, is she on the up and up? Is she involved with James Jr.? Or is it that she was taking James Jr. away from the situation or had to get away from James Jr.? Do we not know some secret about what James Jr. did? Do you think the mom is somebody you can take at face value for what she's saying, or do you think there's something hidden?
There's definitely something hidden, but the question you got to ask yourself, is it being hidden for, evil purposes, for good purposes, or just neutral purposes? It's what she's going through. There's more to her. There's more to the story. And whatever she's about to tell Jim about the reason she left, I'm going to say it's not 100% the truth behind her departure. There's going to be elements of truth in there. There's going to be parts of it that, that's what she was doing, but there's always going to be just that little bit she's going to hold off. We're not going to get full disclosure from her, or we're not going to get full honest disclosure from her. I think there's still going to be some more games she's playing. On one hand, I sit here and I'm like, I don't trust her just because, when you get somebody who abandons the children, who abandons the husband, just ups and disappears and doesn't say why, just gone like that, makes you got to question motives. You got to question anything they say. She can say, I did it for good reasons. I did it for the truth. But can you be 100% certain?
Well, she said she did it for James Jr.
Right. So
what does that mean? Because we all know what James Jr.'s like.
Right.
So, and here's what ends up happening. This is a mother and her son. So was she trying to help him? Did she protect him? Did she cover for him? Or was it really that she, I don't know, it's, or did she leave when she's saying because of him, because she couldn't handle him and she could no longer put up with it? I don't know.
Yeah, see, I would lean towards that last one, but that's just, I'm a little bit more paranoid. I would have to wait and see what she'd have to say. If I was Jim Gordon, I'm putting myself in his shoes. My ex-wife just told me I left because of our son. Mm-hmm. The first thought that would go through my head is, you couldn't take it? It was too hard for you, so you quit. That would be the first thought that goes through my head. Now, I don't know what she's going to actually say. I don't know where she's going to go with this, but me personally, because I'm always a bit of a skeptic, I'm going to lean that way. I'm going to kind of judge, going from there and see, okay, how's she handling herself? How's she presenting herself? How's she presenting the information? Can I trust her? Can I believe her? There is going to be always a trust issue with her when you get somebody who ups and abandons you. That's a hard one to get over. That's a hard one to work through. And that's something I really enjoy seeing Barbara try to work through it. Because it's a very realistic style. It's a very realistic feeling, true, honest emotion coming out of her. And I'm curious to see now Jim on the other side, because he's never stopped loving this woman. This is, his one. And how is he going to deal with it? And I think we're going to get two different, reactions. We're seeing Barbara, who's a little bit colder, and Jim's going to be a little bit more open towards it.
There's no way this is ending well, right?
I hope it would, but I don't think it will.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for Gordon.
I am too. I'm with you because I always
like
root for
Gordon.
Jen.
I think he's awesome, and I like Barbara, and I think she's cool. So I'm rooting that they maybe will have a happy family in the DC universe in Gotham, and everything will be sunshine and lollipops for her. But I don't see that happening. I see something really bad happening.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure what it is, but it's intriguing because I actually care. I'm actually interested. I'm speculating on it. I don't have any answers at all. I'm not going to pretend that I do, but this is a great example of where I'm just really excited to be along for the ride on this. This is a family who I really love. And to me, the best of the Barbara Gordon stories, the best of the Batman stories involve Jim Gordon.
Yeah.
On some level. It's great to have those kind of interactions and that whole family. When I grew up as a kid with Batgirl, it was always, her dad was the police commissioner, and she was keeping that secret, and he never knew. I always liked that element to it, that there was something there. He's Batman's buddy, but he doesn't know what her secret is.
Yeah.
But I always liked that hint too that there subconsciously he did know. I wonder what is canon with that now, because there were hints, obviously major in your face hints that he knew way back when. But I wonder if that's still in play.
I would guess no, just because we're dealing with a much younger Batman, a much younger, Gordon. It's early in the relationship, early in just the evolution of the character. So right now, Gordon probably doesn't suspect Batman is Bruce Wayne, just because the whole Batman Inc., I think, would throw Gordon. If he had any consideration that maybe Bruce is behind this, he's now saying, oh, okay, he's behind it financially. He's not behind it physically. So he's not thinking Batman and Bruce Wayne are one and the same. So it's, again, another reason why I really like Batman Inc. And I just like seeing this, I want to see how this plays out. It's funny, I enjoy the physical action sequences. I enjoy the Batgirl moments. But these Barbara Gordon moments just had me going, I could read a book just of the personal life of Barbara Gordon.
Yeah. And
just how she's dealing, life outside of the costume. Just how she deals with the everyday stuff. I could read a book on that just because she's got a neat, story and a neat little life going on here.
You know what? I find that's true of all my favorite characters, though.
Yeah.
And that'll change from creator to creator who jumps on a book. Like in some books, I'm very content with what they're doing in the book and just enjoying reading the character and their superhero adventures, and there's nothing wrong with that. But my favorite books, the ones that are really major standouts for me, are the ones where I want to know things like that. Those things that we don't see on camera, I care more about them. Like what does she do for fun in the free time and all that kind of stuff. And you're right. You know what? A lot of people aren't going to want to read that way, but that becomes when you're kind of like a psycho fan from it. You start speculating about that. I would read a second Batgirl monthly book that was called Barbara Gordon and just follow her doing day-to-day stuff, like getting groceries. Like, I want to know where she shops, what kind of food she eats, stuff like that. That's really weird. Because you're saying that, and I'm like, I kind of agree with him. I would read that story. Barbara goes to the dentist.
Just 22 pages of her sitting there going,
Oh, wait, I would. That could be a very funny book in and of itself. Imagine being a writer saying, hey, I got an idea. Let's write 22 pages of somebody going to the dentist office. I don't have to write the dialogue. Or let's see if they can figure out what the dialogue, there's actual genuine dialogue in the mumbling. Let's see if people can figure out what it is. That's actually becoming a more interesting comic now.
We're joking around, but I'm like, that actually would be kind of funny to see.
For like one issue. But
it reminds it's funny, you just reminded me of a Green Lantern story that someone said. I can't even remember who said it. It was somebody from one of our friends from another podcast. They were talking about ideas on stories, and they threw out this idea of what if the rings lost all their power.
Oh wow.
And because they had multiple people, multiple planets, they all spoke a different language naturally. So the entire book would be written in this foreign language, and you as the reader have to figure out what's going on, what they're saying, and they have to work together, but they can't understand each other.
One of the issues that I loved with Blue Beetle was the Spanish language issue. And I don't speak Spanish, but I really enjoyed like reading that in Spanish first and trying to figure out what was going on, then seeing the dialogue. I don't. There's something. I thought there was something neat about that. Now, when Batgirl's coming in, sleeking into this Cartier Club, and that's how you pronounce it, isn't it? I think Cartier One Club. When she's coming in, I am a big fan of when it's not just female characters; it's characters that aren't like the big, bulky, heavy, muscular people that are more sleek like that. When they use body weight to handle situations, not just their own, but the person they're trying to take down. She's got this guy here who's clearly could overpower her in the physical end, but instead she's using her weight and his weight by coming down on his shoulders like that. I love that. I think it's a tiny little detail, but it's something that's smart in comics when you see creators who pay attention to the size of the main character and how they would have to overcome. Like, there's going to be girls that Barbara Gordon's going to go, or even guys that are smaller that she's going to go toe-to-toe with. Doesn't need to do that kind of combat with. She can actually face off with them one-on-one, and she's going to be superior. But in the case of where it's a guy who clearly is carrying himself and he's pretty bulky, I love that. I know it's funny, tiny details that I really enjoy.
Yeah, and the boots. Her boots look cool.
I do like those boots.
Yeah.
I actually really like the treads. It's one of the things in the New 52, I know we've talked about this previously, I really enjoy the treads of the various characters' boots. Like we're actually seeing not the flat boot, but actual functional treads. Because I think that's important, especially for the ones that aren't meta.
Yes.
To have those functional treads. Because if you're leaping from rooftop to rooftop, the last thing you're going to want on the bottom of your feet is something as slick as a banana peel.
Yeah.
You're going to want something that's going to grip.
And also just, when she and Dinah were fighting, just the talk of the shock plates and the various, stuff on the armor that she's wearing. And, just the look of it, you can see it's not a cloth suit. She's not wearing spandex. She's wearing something a little bit more rigid, a little bit, better for the fight, for the block strike, etc. Yeah, I do like seeing these Bat costumes. They really, the creative teams on all the Bat titles really go into it, and they really make sure you would believe that this person is actually able to do this stuff because they have this cool equipment.
Now, how does somebody like Grotesque finance themselves? Is he from money? Is that what the thing is? Because here's my question: he's a snob. He likes the best in all things, and he wants this $500,000 bottle of wine. But he's not looking to unload that on eBay. He's looking to drink that, right?
Oh yeah, hey. It's why waste it? Sit down, drink it, crack open the bottle, have some fun. I like the fact that that's part of his quirkiness, part of his craziness, is that he wants to steal this, $500 million bottle of wine, and he doesn't want to store it, sell it. He just wants to drink it, and that for me is a little bit on the quirky side, a little bit on the weird side, but also I'm like, okay, makes sense to me. I personally wouldn't do that, but I could see, I can understand his logic behind it. He wants the best. He's going to drink the best. Well, this right here is the best bottle of wine you will ever find, ever. And he's going to drink it, and he will be the only one who's ever truly enjoyed it and appreciated it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there. That's part of the snobbery. Or
part of it is, what's the point in having this if you can't say, I drank it? I actually know what this tastes like. I alone, am the expert on this wine.
We're okay, Batwoman. What a great line. Because it is one of the things like I noted earlier that I really like about this book is that, and Batwoman, actually the exact same thing. You could very easily, when you're doing a Batgirl and a Batwoman title, make the characters very cookie cutter and similar. And one of the things I love is that they're just as different as Batman is from Nightwing, which I think is probably one of the closer comparisons between the two.
Yeah.
You've got two, because Dick Grayson at this point is a main headliner as well. So I don't know. I really enjoy that distinction. I love how these characters have been developed. And I'd love to see a team up at some point between the two to see what relationship's like.
I would have guessed that they don't have a relationship. Just because, Batwoman doesn't really have one with Batman. Barbara is Team Batman. Batwoman is not. So I would imagine those two probably have never even dealt with each other.
You misunderstand me. What I mean with the relationships, like what would it be like? You know, would they become friends gradually? Would they become friends instantly? Or would it be one of those, you know, we agree not to bother each other relationships, you know what I mean? Where it's like they team up together because they've got a similar goal, but then at the end, you know, they can't stand each other. Or those, you know, I mean, there's all kinds of different options on the way that could go on the philosophy end between the two of them. I would love to see them together just to see what that plays out like. That's what I mean by the relationship.
Okay.
Not that I'm thinking actually everything you said. I agree with you. I don't think they're running buddies on any level, but I would love to see like what is that like. And I'm not in any mad rush for that. It's just one of the many Bat characters that like I would eventually love to see her with.
Yeah, and I honestly would see those two with Barbara being more open and more friendly towards Batwoman. You know, it's just, I think because of Barbara, who she is, and the fact that she does team up with others, she does play well with others, whereas Batwoman, she is more of a loner. She is more of that Bruce style to her, where it's, you know, she's going to do it her way. This is her mission. This is her operation. So she has a harder time, you know, having a partner, having someone team up. So it would be actually an interesting dynamic, because I think Barbara would be more open and out there, and Batwoman would be a little bit standoffish, and there would be a natural kind of immediate butting of heads.
Or would there be kind of a underlying, without Batgirl realizing it, resentment of Batwoman running around in that outfit without being sanctioned? I don't know. You know, where like she catches herself later and says, "Hey, wait a minute. You know, I'm doing what Batman did to me."
Yeah.
If you follow.
Oh, definitely.
So I don't know. I mean, I think there's all different levels that could go to. That's why I want to read it eventually. Because you know, I'm not sold on any of those as far as which one it is. And I would love to see whatever new possibility there'd be as far as what their relationship's like. It's funny. I do think about stuff like that. You know, the henchmen, when she's taking the masks off the henchmen, I did not see this coming, because I did hear that this issue would have like some Killing Joke references, and you know, we'd get to see, you know, some things from Killing Joke that we really haven't seen, because we knew the Joker had the henchmen and thugs around him at all times. But the fact that one of the people who's in Grotesque's gang now, which would make sense, you know, being a member of the Joker's gang is a very volatile. I mean, this guy's lucky to still be alive.
Yeah.
And I like that when you introduce somebody like this, you see him now with Grotesque. Is that because, like you're saying, Grotesque is the Joker? Or is it because when you run with the Joker, eventually that relationship fizzles and he had to go with Grotesque to, maybe this was another, you know, meal ticket for him or something? I don't know.
If he's able to run with the Joker and survive, you know, that would help him out, and actually it would let him be able to deal more with crazy people still. So it could be a Joker connection, or it could be the fact that he did work with the Joker. He can work with crazy people. He's either desperate enough that he's going to do that, or he's good enough that he can survive. Because, you know, we've seen some really good Joker stories, which kind of, in a way, make you understand why someone would team up with the Joker. You know, there is a certain type of person that would go to that. There's a certain type of person who's desperate enough that that's the only option they can go with, even though they're going into it knowing, okay, I'm one of the Joker's minions. There's a very good chance he's going to turn on me and kill me. But the reward is, you know, the risk is worth the reward.
Yeah, it's an interesting relationship when you get these henchmen. Why would they keep doing that? And why would they jump to a different one? Like, if you had a bad experience with the Joker where... Because obviously, I would guess if you were somebody's henchman and the relationship was going well, why would you go with somebody else? You know, wouldn't you stick with the person who's treating you well?
Oh, yeah.
But I guess there's no loyalty, no honor among thieves. I don't know, to me, this guy is somebody I'm very interested in, just because you don't often get to see the story from the henchman's perspective. You know, they're kind of red shirts and throwaways. And I'm going to be curious to see where this guy's story goes, considering, you know, where this was left off with a cliffhanger. I don't know. It's a great book.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Raging Bullets, the Wonder Hosts have uncovered a shocking plot twist.
Our next book will be Huntress, number 6, and the writer is Paul Levitz, pencils by Marcus Toe, inker John Dell, colorist Andrew Dalehouse, with Carlos Mangua as letterer, Guillaume Marsh as the cover, with Ben Abernathy editor, and Huntress was created by Paul Levitz, Joe Stanton, and Bob Layton.
It's funny. This is one of those books that I was really anticipating. I don't know why I didn't see the ending coming. I felt like a dunce at the end of it. Did you have that experience? Like, I'm so into the story. This is like a great miniseries. I really just thought this miniseries was going to wrap up, and it did. The ending was terrific, so it ended up the miniseries just like what I was expecting. We were going to get like this final big bang ending to this great mob story that we've been watching with Huntress all over the place. And I guess I didn't realize we talked about the possibility that this was the Huntress from Earth 2.
Right.
But like I guess I wasn't really heavily focused on that. I just really was enjoying the book. And then bam, at the end we find out that that's in fact who this is. And that she's been here for a year? Is that how you're reading that?
Yeah, it looks like a year.
So, and then Power Girl was really Karen Starr in Mr. Terrific. So we've got verification of the identity of both of these two characters from this. And it was funny when I hit that epilogue at the end with the two of them where they were together, it was a nice surprise. Like, it wasn't one of those things where like, oh my God, I can't believe it. It was just very pleasant how it played. I'm like, oh, that is cool. And it got me more excited for World's Finest because this miniseries was so well written. And I so wanted this to be the kind of Huntress we would be getting in World's Finest. Because Paul Levitz is writing, obviously both this and that particular series. This really built the anticipation for me for World's Finest based off of this, especially knowing that this is Batman's daughter.
Yeah. Well, we still haven't seen all of her past.
No, it is Batman's daughter. Well, because it's the Earth 2 one.
Well, just because it's Earth 2, we don't know 100% yet. Yeah. I'm guessing that's the case.
They've already said that.
No, they haven't.
Yes, they have. Did you follow like the source and stuff like that?
Okay. I'm going solely by what I'm reading in the book. I haven't heard the stuff online.
This is Batman's daughter.
Oh, okay. I'm like thinking, what? Did I miss something?
No.
Okay.
This is the Robin from Earth 2.
Okay.
And the upcoming James Robinson, Paul Levitz, kind of Earth 2 take on everything. So what is more interesting, though, is how does Robin from Earth 2 translate into becoming Huntress here and why? I want to know why. What's with the identities?
Yeah, the crossover. Well, obviously, my guess would be because this world already has Robin, she couldn't become Robin here, so she became Huntress here. And it's, she's going to do her thing, and this is who she is. She's a hero. She's going to, make her presence known. And I like the fact that, we talked about the fact that this could all be Earth 2, but we weren't sure. We didn't know where it was going to go. And so in my head, I can't call it a surprise because it was something we said could possibly happen, but it still had that cool moment when we actually get the full-on reveal. When we get the actual Karen Starr shows up there, picks her up, they do a quick little fly, you see super strength, okay, Karen Starr is Power Girl. She was sandbagging it earlier within the Mr. Terrific book when she made her appearance there. There's everything going on there, and I liked seeing all that, and that was a great moment. But the funny thing is, that was just the epilogue. Leading up to it, we had some really cool Huntress moments that, once again, just cemented in my enjoyment of this character and really beefed up the anticipation for World's Finest, seeing another, a continuing, ongoing story with this character.
One of the things I really like about her is she uses Dad's intimidation tactics in the way that she's operating. With taking out these, the chairman and things like that, and then, for Hassan to actually see what happened to his dad.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought that whole thing was absolutely terrific. Now, what do you think about her and her stance on killing?
It's, I don't have an issue with it. She's from a different world. She's from a different Batman. She's a different character. I would have an issue with if someone who was this Earth's Batman's daughter, who was trained by this Earth's Batman, going over and doing the killing thing. I would, that would be a problem unless there were extenuating circumstances. Like Jason Todd, he makes perfect sense why he does what he does. If there was, like, Dick Grayson. If Dick Grayson were to turn, or if Tim Drake were to start killing people, I would have an issue with that. But she wasn't raised by this Bruce Wayne. She wasn't raised by this, Batman. She had her own world. We don't know what was like over there for her. We don't know exactly what he's like over there yet. So for now, I'm like, okay, I have no problem with her killing, just because, it's, that whole Punisher style. It's that whole, where it's the true vigilante style.
Now, here's my question. It's funny when we throw out Jason Todd, which kind of relates to this, because you're giving her a pass, and I agree with you, actually. I don't mind as long as there's a distinction of the alternate Earth having variations. Like, to me, I think it's half the fun of having an alternate Earth. If you're going to have two Batmen, to have them the same is, like, a little crazy.
Right.
Do you want some distinctions? Even the original Earth 2, the distinction was that Batman had grown older and gotten married and had a child. You know what I mean? Those can be distinctions as well, too. And he really was the golden age Batman, kind of still being around. So I don't know. I kind of like that kind of stuff. But if this Earth 2 is going to have distinctions between your Superman and your Batman, and are things in the story, and I won't reveal all those. If you want to see more, there's details on the source blog and just around the internet that you can find of what we know so far about Superman and Batman, and there's some interesting quirks that some people are in an uproar about. But to me, I like that when it's your distinction of when it's an alternate Earth, it's okay. When it's the main Earth and this character, it's not okay. I'm with you. But I want there to also, if it's an alternate Earth, and you're going to say it's that world's Bruce Wayne, tell us what makes him, like, what events made him different. What was it that changed him? So that's stuff I'm really looking forward to anticipating. It's funny, this Huntress, though, one thing I want to say, she has all the best qualities of everything I liked from Helena from our world pre the New 52. The one that was in our Birds of Prey.
Yeah.
These are all the qualities I like about that character. Even though it's a different Helena, it's still got... I think these are essential qualities of the Huntress that need to be there.
Oh, definite. She, that was the thing when we first started reading her. We were like, okay, this is the Huntress. This is that character. We couldn't initially say, yes, this is something dramatically different. She still had that same style. She still had that same feel to her. We had that comfort level with her. So that, it's... Yeah, this character is different, but she's not so jarringly different. She's not, anything that's, really shocking to me. I was able to jump right into her, back her up, understand her mindset, where she's coming from, and what she's doing. I didn't know exactly if she was the same Huntress. I didn't know where she was, whether it was the whole, daughter of the mob family who's, making amends and, vengeance and whatnot, or if this was Bruce Wayne's daughter, or if this was a third option that I didn't know, but because of the character, because I was so accessible to her, because I felt, comfortable with who she was in and out of the costume, I jumped right into this both feet, and I was enjoying the read. And it's something that as the story went along, I really started following it more, into the point where, boom, right at the end, I'm now 100% behind World's Finest.
It's funny you made that distinction. One of the things I really enjoyed is that we didn't know until the end. That was, I think there was those hints there, but there was like I said, I would have been happy with any of those possibilities because it's so stuck to the core of what I think is cool about the Huntress concept that they had me with whatever the reveal was going to be as far as who she is. I actually, if the miniseries had ended and we never had that answer, you mentioned before how great this story was, I wouldn't have cared because I didn't jump into this miniseries. I don't think I consciously jumped into this miniseries looking for answers as far as which, is the relationship to Batman? Is it the daughter? Is it, the Helena that we had in the pre-New 52? I don't know. That was stuff that just did not bother me at all because the story itself was so great. I love this whole bit when she's escaping with her car.
Yeah.
And, she jumps over the hood. And the three panels where we see her pulling the belt off, improvising, using the belt as a way to get across the line. I don't know, there was something about that adventure aspect that just shows that, you talk about the improvising, adapting, and overcoming. This is Batman's daughter.
Yeah.
She better have some tricks in her arsenal that are going to kind of make her stand out. And those certainly did. I really liked it. I like the confidence in her.
Yeah, I definitely had the dun da 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 dun da da kind of theme going through my head as she's just scrambling. Does the Dukes of Hazzard across the hood, the belt whipping, zzz, kind of zipping down. That for me was really cool, just sequence. And again, it was a great art flow. This was some nice work on the visual side of it. The entire time I was completely into what I was seeing. You can kind of imagine, just the flow through and just actually physically seeing her do this stuff. It left the paper and actually became something tangible.
I really liked Marcus II's work on Red Robin.
Yeah.
I thought that was it's for me. We were really enjoying the work that Freddie Williams was doing, and when you have a new artist come on, and over time they make you enjoy his take on it too. It was really great. Robin's a character who I think has been very lucky in the artists that have been in touch, been a part of that character's imagining him. And it's great to see that Marcus II's here and that we're Marcus II is on Batwing. That's awesome to see that artist on there. I don't know that I prefer one Huntress costume over the other. To me, I've always liked the coloring of it and the style of it. This version of the Huntress costume really pulls from the classic elements of what I always liked. Do you have a preference between this and the bare midriff one?
I don't have a preference either way, I would guess. Yeah, I don't really have a preference. It's kind of like the Bat costumes where you can have variations with it, you can have tweaks, and I wouldn't see any really difference of it. Mm-hmm. I think functionality-wise, a full bodysuit with the plate armor and the shock armor and like the stuff we talked about with Batgirl, it makes more sense to me logically that she would have that. But anytime I saw her with the bare midriff, I never once said, "Oh, come on, why are you doing that?" It was part of the costume, it was part of who she was, and I was like, "Yeah, that looks cool." There was some really cool artwork going on there. So, I would say I don't have a preference, but as I'm talking, as I'm thinking, I'm probably leaning more towards a full bodysuit style, that we're seeing here.
I really like the way that she sneaks into there when she's using these, drainage lines to sneak in that way. I really love how that all played out, and it gave her a little edge over these guys because they just didn't see her coming. And it was just something that I appreciate. I get into that kind of stuff when you take characters. See, I think if you're going to be in Batman's world, you need to be able to sneak around and get into places because odds are usually going to overcome you.
Well, the one line before that where she acknowledges the security chief probably looked at this and said, only an absolute insane moron would try to scale this wall, would try to scale this cliff. So they look at it as it's a secured area. Well, she's not exactly the most sane person for what she's doing. So, hey, let's go for it. And there is a little bit of the action-adventure side to it. She really didn't know 100% that she would be able to do it. She probably was, in the upper 90 percentile confident that she'd be able to pull it off, but there is just that little bit of element of danger. There is that little bit of something could go horribly wrong here. You need to have that little bit of a risk to it.
Now, here's the question that I have. Huntress lets this guy go. Thinking, I don't know how you're reading this, is that she'd rather control him and put him to a stop than take him out and let somebody else take control.
Yeah.
But are you reading that the same way or differently?
100% same way. Better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. And this guy, she put the fear of the Huntress in him.
Yeah.
He's going to, go straight and narrow. And if he starts drifting a little bit, she'll hit him hard, just give him a little reminder, smack upside the head. Or maybe, actually, she probably wouldn't even need to do that. All she would have to do is just, break into his secured fortress that he's, hiding in, leave a Huntress arrow just sitting there saying, remember your promise. Just a little reminder, hey, I'm still watching you. I still know what you're doing. So she's got a good control over this guy.
Oh, I like the idea that it's stopping the trafficking. This is an opportunity to. You're not going to 100% stop it taking a plan like this, but in this case, she's like, if I take him and put him out of business, or put him, under control, anybody working below him, he's going to keep in line so I don't come back after him. Especially with the cockiness of keeping the bounty on me.
Yeah. Yeah, that I was laughing when that was playing out because I'm like, really? I kind of would take that bounty off, but you know what? Again, it's that whole little bit of danger, little bit of risk. And she's like, why remove the challenge? This isn't just about justice for her. There is the thrill of the adventure. There is the adrenaline. There is that little bit beyond just helping people. Yes, she was fighting for helping people. Yes, she was fighting for justice, and she was doing what she was doing for the right reasons. But there is that little bit of crazy side to it. There is that little bit of adrenaline junkie in her.
I love the whole, if I'm still alive after a year,
Yeah.
you donate $2 billion to charity.
Yep.
And I thought that was for abused women. And I think that's just great. I thought it was just a great story element because it totally fits her motivations in this issue. I really liked seeing her afterwards when she was flying back, when she's out of costume.
Yeah.
We see her using her skills to try and escape, which eventually led her to the great reveal with Power Girl and all that. I don't know. It's just a great issue. The ending, I would have been very satisfied if the epilogue wasn't there, with the two of them. That to me was all bonus material. I wanted her to be in a monthly. We talked about this, with the first issue of this series. And I'm so glad that World's Finest is coming back with both of these two characters. We can see them on a monthly basis.
Oh, definite. And it's funny, with that little ending bit there, as she's swinging out the wind, as she's swinging out the window, and she's kind of got that little smirk on her face, and hey, I won here, and you can see the guy kind of cowering, right there. That could have been a solid ending, and I would have sit there and said, "Oh, okay, this is good." But just that little extra step, those extra couple pages, the teaser for World's Finest. I was just really excited, and I was like, yes, this is, I was looking forward to it. I wanted to read it. I was like, oh, okay, this made me excited to read it. This made me really go, okay, this is going to be something cool.
It was a great miniseries. I mean, this to me is what you do with a miniseries. I mean, make it to the point. The Ray I'm loving for similar reasons. It's one of those series where you want to see the character monthly. You want to be able to read this character more often. I honestly wanted to see the Huntress weekly. And I'm not I'm not exaggerating that. When I put down the issue, I wanted more immediately. This is one of those books that was a top of the stack read for me. When this came out, I grabbed this. I'm a Bat Family junkie, but the Huntress, because of the fact that her relationship with Earth 2, growing up, this is a character extremely important to me. It's great to see her in this series and doing, this miniseries and doing so well. What a great setup to where this character is going.
Look at those strange little beetles. They look... Great neutron!
Hey, Sean. Hey, Jim. My name is Jim as well, from the northern confines of northern New Hampshire. Long-time listener. I go back to the great old days when episodes not only had numbers, they had letters. I think our best week was 4 letters. We had an A, B, and a C and a D, but either way, you guys are just the best. For a long time, I actually was a reviewer for one of the websites out there, which I guess I can name. It was Toon Zone, and I was their DC reviewer, and I was just really constantly appalled by the people that, no matter what DC managed to do, would find fault with it. And it's visible still. I was just reading on Newsarama today that they interviewed 2 of the gentlemen who are spearheading the new 52, and basically it got kind of hostile because they started asking, well, your market share is dwindling. You've got the top 10 books, sure, but next month when Marvel comes out with Avengers versus X-Men, you're going to lose most of your top spot. It's like, you know what? Can we not be happy for the success that DC's having? Do we have to, create some sort of phony, antipathy between Marvel and DC? I don't get it. Be happy for the good comics. As you guys have always said, if you don't like what you're reading, don't bother reading it. So that's where I'm coming from. I got to tell you, there is nothing wrong with a podcast that is completely and totally positive. And I'm not saying you guys, just look at a book and go, oh yeah, that's the greatest, even when it isn't. You're honest, but you're honest about the fact that you love DC Comics, as do I. I'm 48 years old. I have been collecting since I was 13. I have a collection that is huge. The last time I had it evaluated, it was worth close to $200,000. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that because I love my books. That being said, I think the New 52 has been just raucous fun. Have there been some misfires? Yeah. The one that comes right off the top of my head is Red Hood and the Outlaws. I got to tell you, I just struggle monthly to read that and give it the benefit of the doubt. Not that I dislike it. I don't. I've never, however, really liked the character of the Red Hood, so maybe that's where I'm coming from. I think partially, though, it would be interesting if they wanted to harken back to one of the best of the best, would be to call it Red Hood and the Outsiders. There's no doubt that Corey and Red Arrow are outsiders, as is the Red Hood. And I think it would harken back to one of the greatest team-up books ever in the history of DC. So that's the one I'm least enjoying. The one I'm most enjoying, oh my lord, what, there's 51 others? I guess I'm going to have to say 51 others. I mean, they're great. The relaunch of JLA, I got to tell you, the first issue I was a little iffy on, only because I thought that it was deconstructed storytelling, and I hate that. But it's really picked up, and I understand now why they did it that way. Catwoman, I know that there was some outrage at the beginning. I never got that either. Catwoman to me and Bruce, Selina and Bruce have always been meant to be together, and if that at times is handled in a very adult way, I get it. Some of the books, I get lost a little bit because, as I said, I've been doing this since I was 13, so that's, 35 years. The Legion books, sometimes I scratch my head because it's just, there have been so many versions of the Legion that it's hard to keep them all straight. But it's a good book. I love what they're doing. Earth 2, I haven't seen it. I've seen the covers for the first two issues. I've seen interviews. I mean, if this isn't a fanboy's dream, I don't know what is. This whole thing, I remember when DC did the whole 1 year jump, and we all were pretty excited about that because that meant that there was that whole year that was missing that really could be story options. But you know what? It's hard to do story options when you have so much mythos, when you have so much baggage. There's not a lot you can do, and this basically allows all of us to sit here and go, okay, we know the basis of Batman, we know the basis of Superman, we know the basis of Wonder Woman, but we only know the broad strokes. And the same goes for Green Lantern and my personal favorite, Green Arrow. You know the broad strokes, but there's so much now to be filled in, and it's like being at the beginning of the DC universe. I mean, I can't imagine it being any better than that. And the miniseries, I think, have been just phenomenal. The whole Huntress, the whole reveal that really is the Huntress of Earth 2, that really is Bruce Wayne's daughter. Can't wait to find out what happened to Bruce on that world to the point where he was willing to kill to protect his daughter. I mean, I'm sure that our Bruce would do the same, but I'm sure he'd also find a way to avoid it. So Earth 2 is just intriguing. Batman Inc., to quote Stan the Man, enough said. I mean, come on. It's not going to get any better than that. I mean, look at, this really could well turn out to be the golden age of Batman titles. I've heard so much griping about Legends of the Dark Knight. Refer to previous comment. If you don't like it, don't read it. I was listening to your, I think it was 296 today, where somebody had talked to somebody in a comic shop, and they were bemoaning the fact that Legends was such a bad book that they couldn't sleep at night. Dude, read something else. You know, if you don't like a book, don't invest your money. And you know what? There was a time there for 2 years that I absolutely stopped reading comics because I wasn't enjoying them anymore. And this was quite recently. I mean, this was like 2.5 years ago. I wasn't enjoying them anymore, and they were expensive. And it was a real big investment to get nothing back. So I stepped away for 2 years, and then I heard about the New 52, and I'm going, you know what? Maybe it wasn't made for people like me who love comics, but you know what? I kind of like being a lapsed Catholic. I was a lapsed comic book reader, and it brought me back into the fold. I still scratch my head over Marvel, and that's why I don't pick up any Marvel books. But DC, and that's not a knock against Marvel. It's just that they've gone through so many iterations themselves that maybe they need to do what DC did. I'm loving the ride. I'm loving the stories. Be it Catwoman or Wonder Woman or Supergirl or Batgirl, can you consider 4 more powerful books to give to a young lady, a young girl, and say, read these? It couldn't be any better to aspire to that. Justice League International, Go Booster, Justice League Dark. I mean, if you're league head like I am, nothing can beat this. So the bottom line, Jim and Sean, is I love the program, and anybody who ever knocks you has no idea what they're talking about. There's nothing wrong with being positive in a negative world. And if you and I and all of us who are listening to this right now can escape into the current mythos. I mean, this is our mythology. This is the kind of stuff that 100, 200, 300, 500 years from now they'll look back on and go, well, the Romans had that mythology, and the Americans and the world had this mythology. 500 years from now, I would be rather shocked if somebody didn't know who Superman was. It's been almost 100 years as it is, and he isn't going anywhere. So all I can tell you is keep up the good work. I do have to say I'm glad that we got out of the wheelhouse. That was starting to drive me a little over the edge. But awesome, guys. As I said, I'm a long time listener. It's been a long time since I participated on the forums. I'm going to try to give it a shot over the next few days just to lay down some ink on that and, just let the world know where I'm coming from. But, guys, awesome. Thank you so much for making my day every day when I have an opportunity to listen to the podcast. I hope all is well. Hope you're having a good night. Take it easy. This is Jim up in northern New Hampshire, signing off.
We were laughing during the end of your email because there is no more forum. Well, there is. First of all, I'd like to address that. Well, for a very, very – actually, since this podcast started 6 years ago, our good friends at Comic Geek Speak have been doing what's called the Comic Forums, and that was an offshoot of their tremendous forum. And it was great because I was a fan of Comic Geek Speak, still am. And, they were kind enough to offer that. So I'm like, wow, I'm already a part of this forum community, and now my show can be a part of that. And recently they ran into a snag where what's happened is the cost of hosting all of the forums along with their own show forum has become just very cost prohibitive for them. And, it looks like a situation where even if we were donating or, trying to help out with those costs, it would still be an issue. So, unfortunately, we will not have a forum on there anymore. It is coming back. For those of you that are listeners to Comic Geek Speak, the Comic Geek Speak forum is going to be back, and they are hosting another, what they call an other podcast forum, which is going to be a general forum for other podcasts. So please support them. They supported our show. I had to make a decision, at least so far, on what we're going to do on our end as far as, forum interaction for our community and things like that. When this went down, we've been very fortunate that we have a Facebook group that has been very active. We've got an active community we've got 177 people that are there, but there's a lot of people who are posting in there regularly. So rather than jump into a new forum right now, I'm going to point people to our Facebook group as the thing they should be joining to try and consolidate into one area. And if there looks like there's a reason to branch out into a forum again, we'll do that at that time. But I think for right now, rather than starting to give people like 8 or 9 places to try and connect to us, I'm really enjoying interacting with people in the Facebook group. I think we've got a community that's already there, and it just makes sense to just let our community naturally migrate to there rather than anything else. I do want to shout out Jim Dietz because he contacted me from Legion of Dudes. He contacted me, and Darrell Taylor's with us right now, and we were chatting, and Darrell, you were the one that first let me know, because I hadn't had a chance to check my email yet, that the forums were down. And Jim Dietz contacted me and offered us a forum in their forum community. And I'm not going to do that at this time, only because I want to kind of stay with the Facebook group, because our main focus, as with any podcast in the course of the week, is making sure we get out a podcast to you. And I feel when it comes to communicating with our community, I've been spread very thin. And I really like having, when we just had our forum initially, I was responding to almost every post about our show episodes. And with now having our Facebook group, Google+, our forum that we had before, I felt like I was getting spread too thin and I wasn't doing that interaction as much as I liked. So I'm going to try to stick with this for right now, and if I'm able to branch out from there, I will. Because I really, when people respond, a lot of times, especially the episodes, they want us to respond to them, and I really like to do that, so I'm going to kind of keep it consolidated for now. So for right now, I'm pointing everyone to our Facebook group, and I just want to thank both Comic Geek Speak and Jim Dietz for offering to support us. I think that's really great.
Yeah, I think this Facebook thing is going to last a little bit. Yeah, I'm hearing good things about it. I think I have an account. I think I signed up for something, and it's on that internet thing.
It's funny, he's talking about all the books that he liked. I love that enthusiasm.
Yeah.
It's kind of infectious just hearing what books that people are liking and why they're digging it. And even because we could all be liking the same books, but the one that tends to be somebody's top of the stack is going to be a little bit different from everybody else just based on their preferences. I really agree with his love for the Bat titles. When he's talking about this is like a new golden age of Bat titles, because I got to be honest with you, I think all the Bat books right now, all of them, are just hitting home runs. I'm really digging every single one of them for very different reasons. I like their unique nature. I feel like I'm getting something different from each one. Nothing that's cookie cutter or homogenous. They all have validity. Darrell, what is your thought on the Bat books?
I think they're all solid to me. I mean, I've been getting just about all of them. I don't think there's any Bat books that I was getting. And I might have to make a cut because of more books are being added just for money's sake and just get trades instead. But it's the writers are on it. You can tell that they love what they're doing. No one's phoning it in for Batman. I mean, they all have good fun adventures on the book. I mean, I think they're doing stuff that I haven't seen this much character development in Batman since maybe the Chuck Dixon days, in terms of how personal they've been getting into, not just Batman but Bruce Wayne. Even with Batman and Robin, and how they're dealing with Bruce with his son and trying to connect with his son and having such a hard time doing it. Then you have Snyder, Snyder on Batman and digging into his family, his legacy, and how much that means to Batman and Bruce, and now they're going to be dealing with Alfred and what Alfred's family meant to the Bruce Wayne's family. And I mean, you just had The Dark Knight was just fun. Paul Jenkins was just taking Batman on a Michael Bay explosion filled type of crazy adventure. I mean, and it was fun. Either you get it. I mean, if you don't want that, then don't buy it. But it has something for everybody.
It's good action
that's a
film.
Batman fan.
Good action film. I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
And I like good action film. I mean, I think that there's all kinds of different, from strong character development drama to suspense to thriller to just great up in your face action film. I mean, there's so many places comics can go, and I like you were touching on this, the fact that there's new ground being explored. Batman, look how long he's been published, and there's opportunities still to continue to explore through his supporting cast new ground that can affect Batman. That's something that amazes me at the creativity of the writers involved in comics now, that they're still able to tap into areas where nobody's ever gone before. And I think it's because they grew up fans of this stuff. and because they were such fans of this stuff, they found, these things that they always wanted to know. Mm-hmm. Or, these avenues that I wanted to know about Alfred's background. I mean, we know always bits and pieces of it. We've seen little origins done of Alfred and stuff like that. But I always was a fan of when they would bring Alfred's family, family member in or something like that with Alfred, and how that would lead to a twist for the character. Especially when the fact you got to look at the secrets Alfred is keeping. There's a lot to explore there. And I just can't wait to see what they're going to do. Jim, I cut you off before, and I apologize. I knew you were ready. I heard right after I went to Darrell, I heard you ready to go. So what was it?
Well, actually, I was just gonna one comment. Obviously, Jim is a very intelligent man. You can just tell it's the name. We those of us who are blessed with such a wonderful name, we just have that leg up on everybody else. But we kind of have to keep it down, keep it a little calm. So outstanding. Great to hear from you, my friend.
Can I give him a compliment too? I like the fact that he didn't sing. He's one of the smarter Jims I've met.
Obviously, he probably has a wonderful singing voice. Because when your name is Jim, you can pretty much do anything you want. He just chose to let me have the singing spotlight.
Well, you know what? There's something to say you can do anything you want, and there's another thing to say you can do anything you want well.
I said I could do it well. I said I could do anything I want.
Wait, and I'm right here with you. I do a lot of... Wait, I think I can podcast. Anyway, back to Batman. What are your thoughts on the Bat universe?
Well, we're all echoing here, and I'm in complete sentiment with you guys. It's, this is a wonderful time for the Bat family, and we just spent how long did we just talked about Batgirl, and we were saying how we wanted a second Batgirl title that just shows Barbara Gordon's life outside of the costume, just her and her dealing with everything she's got to deal with. We could have said the exact same thing for any member of the Bat family, because they are going into such depth behind who the character is, the man or the woman behind the mask, and they're giving us these really great interactive stories of hero, secret identity, supporting cast and whatnot, of just a nice blending of it. So this is a golden era for comic books.
I actually want to jump back to that for 1 second when we had that conversation, because you and I got a little silly in it on purpose, because there was some, we talked about like seeing a whole issue with Batgirl going to the dentist and try to figure out what she was saying when she had the dental instruments in her mouth, that mumbling. But taking the joking out of that, one of the things that I think would be cool about seeing that with a character, I think there's some opportunity to explore more of what these characters' lives are like day to day, trying to keep their secret. Just kind of the adventure of it. Like, they went off into the mission, at a certain point, and you see maybe the other supporting cast's reaction to it, and how they have to cover for that when they come back. Clever ways that they kind of sneak back into their world and seamlessly to try and make it look like none of that ever happened, or to convince them that they weren't. But also the adventure aspect, and I think there's so many characters in DC that you don't get to see. I've been a big fan of seeing the Daily Planet, seeing Clark Kent in the Daily Planet, Lois Lane in the Daily Planet. I think you could do a whole book a la Gotham Central called the Daily Planet. Mm-hmm. And you could really focus on what hard-hitting, heavy journalism is like for these characters. And you could have Clark Kent as just Clark Kent in those moments, being a reporter, have him zoom off and be Superman, but that's kind of a background thing, not something you see in the foreground like you did with, Gotham Central did that with Batman. Really a chance to develop the bullpen at Daily Planet. Those are genuinely things I would like to read. I think you've got to have the right writers for that, but it would be a good, hard-hitting TV drama style book with great character that you could really focus on that, where you take characters who out of the costume, including our superheroes. Because I do think in that book it would be very interesting to read Clark Kent as Clark Kent, in those moments where Clark Kent's not the background, Superman's the background. Just the reversal of how it usually plays out in his books. I don't know, for me, that would be something I would enjoy reading. Done by the right team.
Oh, big time. Complete cosign on that.
So it's kind of funny how, and I think there's room for that in the Bat universe. I would love to see a Gotham Central again, personally.
Yeah.
Or even a Wayne Foundation or Wayne Industries or something like that. Where, there's characters I think that are supported, like Lucius Fox, being spotlighted in there. But not just him. I think you need to, bring in everybody. Have Alfred's, what are Alfred's dealings with the Wayne Industries? Does he have any? As being Batman's confidant, I always felt like he's got to be involved somewhat in that. and advising Bruce on how to handle things. Or at least what Bruce's role in all that is. Maybe it'd be great to see a lot more of what Bruce does behind the scenes that we don't know. You know how Bruce shifts his company in the directions he wants it to go in while still maintaining sometimes that facade, that mask of being a little bit more aloof as a playboy. But we've seen in the comics many a time where Bruce has used his influence as Bruce Wayne to further Batman's agenda. So it'd be kind of cool to see behind the scenes what that looks like, where we see it really is more heavily focused on him when he's Bruce Wayne. And again, another thing where it could be a good TV drama. I don't know. That's the kind of stuff I'd really like to read. You can't obviously launch all those books; they won't do well. But I'd love to see something like that back on the table, because I think that would fill the gap that we're missing from a Gotham Central. Because I do think that's a book that's missing. I think that's something that I really enjoyed, and I don't know that it has to necessarily be Gotham Central again, although I'd be thrilled with that. But something like that, where they're exploring some kind of unexplored territory of these supporting characters, where you get a bunch of the cast together. I don't know.
All right. I can go for that. Even if they did it not as ongoing, but they do it as case by case. They have one particular case that they're trying to solve that's maybe 4 issues. And in between that, you have their lives and, little things going on, and then continue it, every couple of months.
Yeah, or even do it as minis, a series of minis where maybe kind of going off the route of what you're saying, Darrell, you've got a case of 4 issues that involve, like, the Daily Planet, and then a case of 4 issues that involve Gotham Central, then a case of 4 issues, I don't know what you'd call it, but, put it on some kind of banner that, would kind of link to that, where it's kind of like what they're doing with DC Universe Presents, doing kind of the doing that kind of thing with kind of some of those backgrounds where you can go. I mean, that'd be another way to go into like Queen, company.
Oh yeah, any of them you can really just tell a little bit behind the curtain. Just kind of open up and just let you see the parts that we normally don't see.
And I like Darrell's comment about it being a case, though. There's got to be an arc there where there's like a meat to it. I'm not just saying seeing them like clean their desks or stuff like that. You really want to see, besides just the regular day-to-day stuff, you really want to see, like, what is the meat and potatoes of what they do, what makes them special, what makes them just as much of a hero as, the character that we normally follow. And what leads him to respect them as much as they do, or he or she. It'd be great to see Steve Trevor, for example, from Wonder Woman, spotlighted in that way. I'd love to see more Steve Trevor and just kind of what he does behind the scenes. I always like that character as well. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to that. I know I'm pointing at the Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, but even Green Lantern, some of the mainstay characters. But I would hope down the road, if it did well, you could even explore some of the smaller, lesser known ones. But I don't know, it's kind of a cool idea. There's a lot of I think we all have like huge wish lists of things that we would take a chance on if they published them, but they can't have 700 books. No. There's no time. Forget the money part. Time becomes an issue there.
Hey, Sean and Jim. This is Jamie Dunstan, JD74 on the boards, and I wanted to rage about some books I read this week. The first one was Green Lantern #7. And to start off, I was really happy with Monkey being back on the art duties. I wasn't really fond of the artist from last issue, but I was very happy with this time, and it just was just a great issue. I loved the struggle between Sinestro and Hal, putting the ring back on Hal again. There was a scene where Hal tells Sinestro that he wasn't going to work for anyone ever again, and then Carol says, "Not including me," and then Hal agrees with her. The panels were just, to me, were kind of funny. I love how Sinestro convinces Hal to go with him, and this is a start of a really cool arc. I've been waiting for a little while now to find out about the Indigo Tribe, and this is the start of something that I'm really interested in. I really wanted to know more about them, and the Guardians, as always, are continuing to be big poo heads. So I'm waiting for them to get get something to happen to them for the Guardians, because they're just becoming really mischievous and really just like, I can't stand them at this point. I want something to like fight back on them already. But overall, this is a great issue, a really cool first part to a good arc, and hopefully a lot of my questions will be answered. So that was that. Batgirl number 7. This was amazing. I think each issue has just gotten better and better, and I loved how this all started out with her fighting the guy in the sewers, and the dialogue and the inner monologue was amazing. I love I just realized this in the sewer. There's graffiti that says "Catwoman loves me," and another one says "Dark Vengeance," which I thought was kind of neat. The conversation between Batgirl and Dinah just reminds me how much time and investment, and care Gail Simone put into Barbara and Dinah and the relationship they had. And I just thought this was really cool. I love the interaction between James Gordon and his ex-wife. And I love the ending of this. It's something that I did not see coming, and it brings about a little bit in the Killing Joke story, and I thought that was just outstanding. It was really, really cool, and I just can't wait for the next issue. Especially now, speaking of things I cannot wait for the next issue on, Batman and Robin number 7. This was awesome. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. The battle between Batman and nobody was brutal, and I loved that it was an entire fight issue basically, and the art and the dialogue, it was stunning. But the ending of this issue, I didn't really see coming, although I should have, and it blew my mind. And I cannot wait to see the fallout from this issue, because there's going to be fallout. Since I've been noticing that they put in the new DC logo onto the book. I gotta say, I don't mind it. It doesn't bother me. It's more corporate. It's more stylized, fancy, as something for more comic booky. But as far as logos go, I don't mind it. It seems okay, and for me anyway, it's what's inside the book that counts more than anything else. So I like it. It does its job. I know it's a DC book, so they succeeded in that. Anyway, great show as always. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.
It's funny when he was talking about the logo. I didn't even really pay attention to that. I ended up, I'm like, pulling out one of the issues. I'm like, oh yeah, it is there. I've got to say, I don't know how you guys feel about this, so we'll kind of go around. And the new logo, though, in practice, I like it a lot better on the comics than I thought I was going to. Like, I'm looking at it right now, and to me, it looks really sharp. I like it. It's very much a digital age kind of thing, and I know why they did it. They're looking more to tailor to the more hip digital age crowd. Especially with, there being not just the comics, not just digital comics, but you're dealing with direct-to-DVD releases, film releases, stuff like that. It looks good on TV, when you see it on the, with the animated programs and stuff now, and you'll see that kind of brought into play. I think it's an interesting logo on that end. I'm kind of stuck between I'm a traditionalist and that I like the classic stuff that always hits me when he's talking about things like the relationship between Barbara Gordon and Dinah. That to me has become a classic relationship from a lot of the development that's gone on in Birds of Prey with those two characters. Mm-hmm. So seeing that brought into the forefront in the New 52 is something I like. But as much as I love the classic, I worry like everybody else when something new is brought in, like this new logo. But now that I've seen it in practice, I'm like, oh, it's cool. I'm into it. I kind of dig it. But what do you guys think, Darrell? Do you like the logo? Is it kind of not your cup of tea?
I mean, it seems generic and corporate, which is what they wanted. They wanted a corporate thing that looks better online. It looks better when it's on TV. Which, I mean, the logo is fine with me because it's not something that I hang up on. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not staring at the book going, I hate that doggone logo, so I'm not going to buy the book. It's just not, it's never been that important, to me, one way or the other. Only thing I care about is if inside the book I'm enjoying what's inside the book. So I understand why they're doing it. It is a business. They're going to want to make changes to try to attract new people in checking out what they're doing. And since they're doing so much TV, with the DC Nation stuff, this logo is going to be there. It's going to be on Facebook. It's going to be on, all types of apps and, on the phones and iPads. And I mean, they're just trying different things. So it really just doesn't make a difference to me.
Jim, what about you?
Yeah, I kind of echo it's the content of the book that's more important to me than the logo. But if you were to say, okay, Jim, pick one or the other and give a definitive answer, I'm going to go old school. I'm going to say the previous logo. I like that better, but I've never turned down a book because I thought the logo wasn't good. So for me, it's not a point of contention. It's not anything that would affect my enjoyment of a book or my purchase of a book. It just personal choice. I like the look of the other one better.
But it's not a deal breaker for you.
No, it's not even consideration. And like you, when he said it's on the book cover, I didn't even realize it. I had to look at the books. I'm like, oh yeah, it's right there. So I really didn't notice it on the books. And I was looking at the covers really in depth, especially the Red Lantern cover and the Huntress cover, and even that great Batgirl cover. All three of those have the new logo on it. I didn't even notice it.
Yeah, I didn't until he mentioned it. I didn't notice it either.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that really stood out for me. I was with you. I was totally focusing on the cover art. Wasn't really a big deal to me, which is fine. I mean, honestly, that's what I should be focusing on when I see the comic. I should be focusing on the hard work the artist did on the cover art. If I'm focusing heavy on the logo, and I'm not saying that Jamie was, I'm actually glad that he pointed this out because I think it's an interesting discussion point. How do we feel about that? I should be focusing on the cover art. But when Jamie brings this up, it's an interesting point because I like their renewed focus on a linked corporate branding. And the reason why I want to explain it is you want your television media to link to the comics, to link to the video games, because that's something where if you've got a kid or somebody or an adult or whatever that's a fan of, like they played Arkham City, and that was, their first exposure to like Batman and media. Maybe they jump from that onto the, direct to DVD, or, from that they jump, maybe try out a comic or something. I don't know. I think that it's really important that their branding has an identity, whatever it is. I don't know that it matters to me what the logo is. Hopefully the purpose comes across to introduce to something else. So I don't know. I always want to see more cross-advertising, and I'm hoping that this branding leads to more of that, where, each piece of their media is supporting each other, and hopefully it trickles down to the comics. Because that was always my biggest worry, is the future of comics. With the amount of competitions that comics have, that's why, to me, I want them to be around 30 years from now. I want to still be reading comics 30 years from now. Mm-hmm. And that's, I want there to be, we had a phone call before where it was Jim, who was mentioning that he stepped away for a couple years from comics just because he needed to. And, a lot of people do that. It's something that happens, or you shrink down your pull list or whatever, just because budget leads to that, or time leads to that, or life leads to that. There's all kinds of reasons why. But, even if there's ever a point where I shrink away from comics or I step away from comics, I want there to be something to step back to. And I think it's really important that this art form is still around. It's something unique. You can't get the experience that you get from a comic book anywhere else. And so I'm hoping things like a linked branding and stuff like that will bring new fans and new people to experience this for the first time. So maybe they, 20, 30 years from now will remember their first issue of Batgirl or, something, or Green Lantern or something like that. I don't know. That's just kind of my take.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Raging Bullets, the Wonder Hosts celebrate their anniversary with a bit of whatnot.
Our next book is going to be Red Lanterns number 7. The writer is Peter Milligan. Pencilers Ed Benes and Diego Bernard. Inkers Rob Hunter, Mark Irwin, Sal Regula, and Dave Mikas. Colorist Nathan Earing with Rob Rice. Letterer Carlos M. Mangual. Assistant editor Sean Makowitz. And editors Pat McCallum. And apologies for any name butchery there. Red Lanterns. And I actually want to welcome back to the show Darrell Taylor. Darrell, we because you and I had that conversation about coming on and talking about Vertigo, because we were talking about the initial 4 launch titles. And at the time I was thinking about, hey, let's just do a Vertigo episode and do that. But with Knightfall coming up for us, I've been doing these as they've been coming out, just because I want to make sure to get all these titles in. So we're going to do 2 before Knightfall, which we're going to do Saucer Country in a little bit. So I wanted to make sure to get you on to get your thoughts on Saucer Country, but we're also having you join us here for Red Lanterns. So welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back on.
And guys, what are your thoughts on Red Lanterns in general as a series? You know, we've had 3 Green Lantern books that have been ongoing for a while now, and now we've got this Red Lantern books in the mix. What are your thoughts on having a books devoted to a specific other core? And Darrell, we'll start with you.
Well, I had went through we talked about it a while back, but I had went through the Green Lantern kind of withdrawal, so I kind of, overdose kind of with reading so many Green Lantern books, so I kind of stepped away and stayed with Green Lantern Corps. But I just jumped back into this issue of Red Lanterns, and I did it old school like we used to do when we were kids, where you just buy whatever book is on the stand and you read it and you catch up after you read it, and it was pretty good. It was pretty fun.
Let me ask you,
figure it out as it goes along.
Yeah, that's what we used to do.
Oh yeah.
But let me ask you this, actually, because that's, and I'm sorry, Jim, I did not mean to cut you off, but that's an interesting experience because you don't hear a lot of that now. You know, nowadays it's typically you jump in at the beginning of a series or something like that. It's very rare to hear somebody saying that I'm just going to kind of jump in 7 issues in, especially when it's only been 6 issues before. Right. How did you enjoy the experience? Did you find it was jarring?
It wasn't jarring. I mean, I kind of you figured the Earth. Like, I mean, I know that a guy from Earth, because they had mentioned it in the story, got the ring. And you have Guy Gardner trying to, and I remember from previously reading it, that helps though, because I had read other stuff, that he had the ring before, so he would know how it feels to have the red, the Red Lantern ring, and have that anger, and he's trying to talk him, he's pretty much trying to talk him from the ledge, and the guy is doing something that hasn't been done before. He's actually having coherent thought, which is not something that they've been able to do. So all that they say that in the story. So I kind of got that. And then you have the leader of the Red Lanterns going through looking for the body of the Lantern Krona. I think it was one that died, right? Guardian. I mean, it's in it. It's in that story pretty much. And he's looking for the body. You find out, that somebody that he had dealt with got powers or something, and he's coming back and he's attacking, and I mean, I got all that from that one issue, so I don't think I missed too much.
No.
Jim, what about you? Red Lanterns, how are you enjoying this series? Comparisons to the other Green books?
Dude, I'm crying more with a rebel yell. Hoorah! I'm loving this, man. And I wasn't going to sing Billy Idol because, I have family members who really enjoy that, and I know he'd probably jump on a plane, smack me around a little bit, just because I butchered one of his favorite artists. So.
Did you see Wedding Singer?
Yeah. This has been just a fun read for me, and again, when they introduced back in the day when they were throwing out the titles and they said the Red Lantern, I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool, like some different cores, and I didn't know how it was going to go or where it was going to go, but every issue's building on the next, and now we got the whole Belize Revolution, and where she's taking over the Red Lanterns, or is she? Will Atrocitus be able to get it back? What's going on with him? Is he actually weaker? Is he going to be stronger? Where is this going to go? And there's the more questions that get unveiled, the more questions that get answered, a new one pops up, and that's something that you need in this kind of book. It's just going boom, 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 constant firing. Some of the stuff that we really enjoyed about the Bat books was the personal side of it, the human side of it. Well, this book I'm basically having the opposite reaction. I like the fact that I'm getting this visceral rage. I'm getting this style from this story, because that is the Red Ring. That is what gives them their strength, their power. It's, with blood and rage of crimson red. That's the fire I need from a book that's going to be about them, and I'm getting that. And it's visually as well as story being told. It's all in sync, and it's all firing on cylinders. This is really a shot in the arm for me for the Lantern universe. This has been a great, I'm digging the green stuff. I'm digging the stories and where they're going, but this really was a boom. We got more story to tell. We got a different way we can go with this. There's something different. This isn't just going to be a cookie cutter story. It is its own element. It is its own entity.
It's funny, when you were doing your I was thinking of Jim Seguin, the mustard lantern of acid indigestion. So you're like, what was that? I totally agree with your sentiments on this book, though. For me, if you're going to launch one of the other rings into a title, you've got to do a title that devotes itself to what makes that ring special, what makes it unique, what makes reading this book different than reading one of the Green Lantern titles. Because, like Darrell was mentioning before, there's 3 Green Lantern books. There's a lot of green going on right now. So if you launch another book that is this, you don't want it to be the same book, and it's not cookie cutter, because it focuses so much on the emotion and that intensity of them. I love also this idea that, when we've got Bleeze, who's become coherent, like Atrocitus, right. and because of that, and because of the fact that these are creatures who have revenge on the mind, and they have their own agendas. Really the rage is all about agenda. And, Bleeze is looking at the fact that, hey, I want to wrest control from Atrocitus. This is something we've seen in the other Corps before. This isn't something exclusive to the Red Lanterns. It's handled differently in each Corps, but we've seen these kind of uprisings in the Sinestro Corps, for example. When Sinestro wasn't there, the battle for leadership of the Sinestro Corps. And that, we had Mogul that was doing stuff like that. And I like that. I don't know. I'm into this kind of, I want to know more of the hierarchy. I want to know more of the supporting cast, why certain characters would support Bleeze, why the rest of them would fear Atrocitus. To me, that is the stuff that's interesting. When you start to actually care about these characters. Introducing the Earth one, I'm glad they waited till, a few issues into the book to jump into that. Establish some of the alien characters, like Atrocitus, obviously the more familiar character like Bleeze, first, and then jump in with this new lantern, this Earth one, and to kind of see it from the Earth perspective. I love that we're seeing that character's inner dialogue, and talking about how he still knows that, I was always afraid to fight when I was alive. And just those feelings of what it's like to be unleashing that, and those doubts still of living this life. There's something about that to be said, because we haven't really seen a whole lot of that before with the Red Lanterns, which is something, that I found that was really interesting.
Yeah, I like the fact that it was Guy Gardner who was interacting with him and dealing with him. Not just because Guy knows what it's like to have the red ring on, but it was interesting seeing Guy not just solve the problem by trying to smash it. He was trying to rational. He was trying to talk the guy down off the ledge. He was trying to just get him, calm him down. Maybe they can work with it. And then he started noticing this guy was acting different than any other Red Lantern he dealt with. He's like, there's something, and Guy was able to recognize that there's something different about this guy. It's a specific, again, it's showing that, Gardner is not just a smash 'em, make big things, make things go boom kind of hero. he is a veteran. He's been around for a little while. He knows what he's doing when it comes to ring slinging, and I like seeing that more intelligent side of him.
But it's funny when he said, you're in trouble when Guy Gardner is the calmest person in the room.
I kind of like his own humor about himself.
Yeah.
Him kind of knowing where he's come from. That to me shows the maturity and the aging of the character too. When you can kind of laugh at yourself, very tongue in cheek like that, and I think that's very real. I think that's also a sign of a character who it feels very much like something we would all do. I think as you get older, you're a little better at that. Whereas I think we're afraid to do it when we're younger, afraid to admit those faults in ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that, I think it's a sign of maturity for Guy.
When you're self-aware, I mean, it's I like when characters are self-aware about themselves.
Yeah.
Whether good or bad, you just understand themselves a lot better. Doesn't mean that they're smarter, because you understand when you're doing something bad. You still do it, though, sometimes. But it just means that you understand why you did it. And the audience, the reader understands you a little bit better.
Now, what the interesting part is with this Jack Moore, we get to see really what somebody goes through. Violence seems so right, so natural. For a moment, I lose flight. The crazy power diminishes. I realize I mustn't think, just act. It's funny how thinking a lot of times causes the power to go away. You need that rage to bring it out in you, which is a lot of what Atrocitus is going through in his current state. Because of the fact that, his rage is diminishing from time to time, and he's got those doubts going on with him, he's not appearing as strong as he used to be. Although at the end of the issue, it could be argued that we're seeing a much stronger Atrocitus. That we'll talk about that when we get to that. What happens to him? But I there is that sense of, we thought you were diminished, we thought you were weak, and he's very strong there in those moments because I think he's giving back into that rage. Here's the funny part. There's a way back in St. Walker's the Way. Do you think a Jack Moore would want that?
I don't think... Actually, I don't know. Jack, he's reaching out. We have that moment when he's like, please help me. When he actually speaks, and Guy's like, whoa. And then even the guy, he saves Guy Gardner and kind of pushes him out of the way of the cars that were going to be crashing into him. So there is the man in there who I think would want the way back and who would want to be saved. Yeah,
I think I agree with that, because I remember early on in the series when they showed him, he's a guy that, and we all go through it, where you constantly get hit with things and you always try to control your anger. You're always trying to do it, but it's always there. There are things buttons that people push on you that can cause you to get really angry, and to have that ring constantly reminding him, constantly bringing all that anger to the surface, and he's trying to control it and contain it. I like to see that, because I like to hear the inner dialogue in his mind, because it helps me to understand what you go through when you're using that ring.
Speaking of earlier, we were talking about seeing some comics that talked about the characters when they're out of the costume. It's great to be a former member of the Sinestro Corps. Yeah. Life's pretty good. It's, you got 9 fingers, but everything else is pretty dandy. It just goes from bad to worse for these people.
It couldn't have happened to nicer guys.
Yeah.
Exactly. Bullies is what they were.
Yep.
It's really interesting how you'll see some of them kind of, please God, whatever the Sinestro Corps did, we don't deserve this, the kind of begging, which goes to the bullying thing. But then you've got some that still are defiant.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I'm still sane and laughing at the notion that you control the Red Lanterns, stuff like that. So it's really interesting that, a lot of times you see bullies will traditionally just completely cave. And you aren't totally seeing that here.
Well, I think what it comes down to is the Sinestro Corps was a very diverse group.
Yeah.
It had your cowardly, wimpy bullies who were given this power so they could do something with it. And it also had your pure evil, nasty sons of guns who you gave this massive power to. I think we're seeing the ones who are begging for their lives. Those are the cowardly bullies who were given this power. Whereas the ones who are able to look you in the eye, laugh at you as you rip their flesh from their bone, that's some hardcore evil creatures who, that they're able to stand it because, they did nasty and despicable stuff and they deserve death, but they weren't cowards behind it. This is who they were. They were evil. They were nasty creatures. Whether you put a ring on them or not, they're still going to do despicable things.
Well, and, speaking of that, he's defiant right till the end. He's being burnt up by Bleez and dying defiant. You'll never win, Bleez. He's too powerful for you. And see, in that Ugg moment, I totally was convinced he was a part of the Mustard Corps.
Hey, I thought I was the...
Well, you're their ringleader. You're like their Atrocitus.
I thought, wasn't I the Chartreuse Lantern or something like that?
Hey,
a long
things
time
change.
ago?
Things change.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or maybe you got more than one ring. No, it depends on the.
Hey, I got
depends on when you're
fingers.
Percolating. Admittedly, I've been with you when you've been in the throes of the Mustard Corps. That's what you call your percolating? Is that what you say?
Yeah, percolation.
These Atrocitus bits, Darrell was touching on this before. These Atrocitus bits, to me, are some of the highlights of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Because, it's a lot of times when you take a look at Atrocitus in his previous appearances, it was so focused on the rage that I think his personality was lost. I'm thinking back to, his initial appearances where we had this guy who was revealing prophecy. And these prophecies were things that you had, there's Secret Origins. Wasn't that his first appearance?
Yeah.
Atrocitus?
I think so, yeah.
And he, it was a retelling of a segment of Hal's origin that added something to the mythos and really set off the whole pacing of Atrocitus and having multiple rings and, beyond the traditional green and yellow that we'd always seen for years. And I don't know, it was something that I just really particularly enjoyed from the character. This series is getting back to that core of what I remember really being fascinated about with the character in that initial appearance. And that's something that I think is really an important piece of this. Because I think if you're going to do and launch a book like this, I want to get into his head. I want to see the things from, the things that caused the raid. My murdered child's burning doll, and stuff like that. What drives this guy and what makes him hate Krona so much, the former Guardian, and his son. Right, Abysmus, that's his son, right? Isn't that supposed to be? Because you didn't just bury me, Father, you rejected me?
Right.
Well, I don't know if it was traditionally actually son, but it was these were his first creation of the Red Lantern. So he was their creator, so he was their father figure. Right. And it was, I didn't take it as biologically, this is his kid. This is just, it's the beginning process, the experimentation of what to do and how to harness the power of the rage. Yeah,
because even, I'm looking it up right now and things like Comic Vine and stuff like that, and it has son in quotes. So, yeah, that adds a lot of weight to what you're saying as far as was he. Because I remember that story, I don't know if it was actually a true son.
Well, I liked seeing this whole abominable zone that they show with the buildings made out of the bones of the marooned space travelers and the crazy kind of jungle vegetation with the sucker face thingies and just the actual life on this planet. Granted, it's creepy and weird and not a fun loving vacation spot that I'd like to see, but there is some type of life on this dead planet, because I always picture it as just complete desolation as far as the eye can see, and we're seeing a little bit more of the landscape. We're getting a little bit more about just this planet. So I thought that was, for me, that was a kind of a cool, whoa, I didn't know they had this here. This is a neat little exploration.
Yeah, I agree. That's one of the things that I really like about this whole sequence of events, too, when they go to that area. Again, and I touched on this quickly, I love this idea that they were attacking now because they thought he was weaker.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Atrocitus on a dime all of a sudden starts saying there's no room for weakness, there's no room for thought, there's only room for rage. And you see just, tearing things up, these creatures apart. it was really only the distraction of the Earthbound Red Lantern that allowed them to get the one-up.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I love the fact that when he realized they're wearing the flesh of Krona, he's like, killing you is the closest I shall get to killing him, and that's what gives him his firing up. That's where he hulks up and he's just ready to rock and roll because he now has his chance to kill Krona. That was taken from him, and he was so angry over that. Now he's got a shot at it, and I love seeing just that reaction and just that boom. Okay, I'm back on the game now.
And then we see the Earthbound. I actually really like his costume. I like that whole layout and everything. It's a good-looking costume. I love the design's terrific. How do you deal with realizing you're dead?
Well, I don't know. Is he completely dead?
I don't think he is.
Well, it doesn't.
I think
doesn't
that's why he's.
If you're a Red Lantern, though, isn't the issue that your heart's no longer?
Yeah, something's different though. There's something about this particular person that makes it different. Somehow he's not fully changed over. There's something, and it's funny because have either of you been watching the Green Lantern cartoon?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious they're doing the storyline with the Red Lantern character. I mean, it's different though. They don't have it that they're spitting up blood because it's more for kids than the comic. But they're dealing with a character who is not evil. He's not necessarily an evil character, and he's actually used the Red Lantern ring to help Hal and Kilowog. So it's funny that this, with this Earth character, if that's where they're going with this too, that somehow there just might be a way that you can transcend being just the all, angry, dead, brought back and just given in the rage all the time kind of figure. Maybe you can control it if through something, some by might, by will, you might be able to actually control it. You might be angry a lot and quicker to get mad, but maybe he could be a good guy.
I see him linking up with Atrocitus more than I see him linking up with Bleez. Like these two, and it's not just because he met Atrocitus first. The way he's carrying himself and the way Atrocitus was carrying himself leading up to this moment, I see two that would be partners, allies. This could potentially be what Atrocitus originally intended with Bleez. This guy I think could be a happy accident.
I think this is the true purpose when he was trying to figure out what to do. I think that this guy is the one that is really supposed to be, the one that he works with to understand. Because it just seems like he's trying to figure out, once you get your revenge, which I've gotten, I'm still sitting here yelling at Bones. Like, this guy's dead. How much dead can he be? I'm still sitting here angry and like, what do I get out of this? I'm not getting anything out of this.
Right.
It's not helping me. It's not helping the universe. It's not like he's trying to think of these things, but then he has these outside forces that are pretty much waiting for him to falter, and then they're ready to attack. So every time he tries to really clear his mind to think about what he wants to do, that's when somebody attacks and he can't do it. So that's the kind of the tragedy of it, because he's not totally evil.
No.
He does have noble intentions, but his whole thing with victims, like, people victimizing other people, and they don't get to get that revenge. I can actually give them that, but what are you really doing? Because you're kind of making a victim out of them also, because they don't have control.
Well, I like that Atrocitus has dealt with that in this series. That's one of the areas where I think psychologically the series gets interesting.
Yeah.
When you see Atrocitus, like, redeeming somebody else's rage, but by causing somebody else to have a situation like you're mentioning where they would have their own rage. And
Right.
which one's more valid? And I love that. That to me is where the book gets interesting. I love all the Civil War stuff going on with the Red Lanterns and all that stuff, but for me it's those character-driven moments too, where you're dealing with the psychology of what they're going through. And, what is your, is there a moral code when you're a Red Lantern? And what is that? What is your purpose? And those are things that, to me, if you're going to do a book like this, you want to get into that kind of stuff. And I'm loving that. I think there's a nice balance. You can't make it the whole book that either.
No.
I think there's a nice shifting between different focuses in this title. And again, what does this do? That then separates this book from the Green Lantern titles and makes it interesting. It makes it different. It makes it something that's worth reading if you're reading the other Green Lantern books, or even if you're not. You don't need to be reading any of those. There's nothing in here that requires reading any of the Green books.
No.
So I would encourage people to try this. Even if you're not a Green Lantern fan, you don't normally read those. This is something a little different flavor that you might dig. Anything else you guys want to say about Red Lanterns that I left out? Or
It's kind of funny.
Okay.
The Atrocitus gets this large wooden spiked piece of wood or whatnot, whatever it is, run completely through his body. We see him scream in pain, and he's lying on the ground, on the final page, with blood. And there's not even a moment in my mind that I think he's dead. It's not even vaguely entering my mind. I'm more thinking of next issue when he rips that thing out of his body and does various things with it to that guy is going to be a really cool episode.
Darrell,
yeah, I'm the same way because I know that he doesn't necessarily need his heart, and but I remember all the way back to The Blackest Night. And that's why. But for people that I know there's people that are reading it that didn't read everything, so they don't know. So this is a surprise for them. But I'm just like, he's so gonna take that thing at his chest and then return it in a way that you will not like.
That's
So
exactly. I'm looking forward to the violence that's about to come next issue, and it's a book where we have these cool moments with this new, Red Lantern, but we do get the bloodthirsty, violent actions that is and should be a Rage ring.
And I do like the whole question of, okay, there's some guy that murdered someone that you love, and you murdered them, and you think it's over, but it's not, because what if that person has a child? Who, even though he's a murderer to you, that's a father. That's somebody I loved. So then you make them a victim.
Yeah, it's part of on the lines of with the people who are anti, capital punishment. It's when does death actually? Is death justice for death? Is it true justice to kill somebody even though they've killed innocent people? And there's always the moral question being raised: is murder right? Is capital punishment the correct way to go? Is it right for a murderer? And I always kind of find the debates interesting when you get people on either side of it going back and forth. I personally am for capital punishment, but I'm not going to sit there and tell somebody who's against it, oh, you're an idiot and you're wrong. I understand what they're thinking. I understand their mindset behind it. And to get a very interesting explanation of it in this comic book is a kind of a cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
Through the magic alchemy of nature's most awesome sources of energy, Ray Palmer, atomic physicist, becomes the atom.
And our next title will be Saucer Country. Sorry, I almost said Saucer County. And I caught myself, but I went too far, so I had to explain what I was saying. But let me say that again. Saucer Country, #1, the new Vertigo title, written by Paul Cornell. Art and cover by Ryan Kelly. Colors by, oh boy.
just spell it.
Giulia Brusco. Julian Brusco. Letters, Sal Cipriano. Yeah. Associate editor Mark Doyle. Editor William Dennis. And Saucer Country was created by Cornell and Kelly.
Could you go through
Wow, did I really butcher those?
Could you go through the creative team one more time, Jim?
Yeah. Writer is Paul Cornell. Art and covers by Ryan Kelly. Colors by Julian Brusco. With letters Sal Cipriano. Associate editor Mark Doyle. Editor Will Dennis.
I was kidding.
Saucer Country was created by Cornell and Kelly.
It was funnier the second time around. This is a book, you know what, it's funny. I'm really glad that they did these 4 launch titles, and I'm glad that DCB Service did that bundle deal with them, because it really motivated me to say, hey, you know, we don't get to do as much Vertigo on this show as I'd really like. I love the line, and this is one of the reasons why. You get kooky books like this that like are really interesting and different. I love the mystery aspect of Saucer Country. Like when the whole thing's kicking out with the governor and her husband, I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know the premise of this book at all. You'd think the title Saucer Country would have like been a kind of a giveaway for me. But I saw her on the cover, you know, as this leader of this nation, and I don't know what it was. I'm an idiot. I'm looking back at the cover art, you know, like in my third read through of this, and the aliens are right there. I'm a moron. I did not at any point in time when I've seen the cover art of this focus on the aliens. I was focusing on her. I was focusing on the people rallying behind her. And for some reason, whatever that was, I wasn't thinking of aliens until obviously what happened in the first issue, and I got to see what was going on. I felt like a dunce after my third read through. I'm like, could you look at the cover like a little bit more? And I love looking at covers. I tend to dissect them. But that one I completely missed.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. You are an idiot.
Did you guys think this book was going to go where it did when you first read it? I don't know what your background is of this story. I really like this title. And as we're going through, I'm going to tell you more about what I'm digging about and what I found that was interesting. The mystery aspect, though, is I want to focus on that because that was something that I really liked, the unfolding mystery of what's really going on here that still hasn't been revealed. I like that.
Yeah, it's an absolute brilliant title. This is, I saw the aliens on the cover, so I'm like, okay, we got something going on here with aliens and I was thinking alien abduction, and I went right from the get-go thinking, you know, with Little Green Men or the Greys or whichever way you want to call them, you know, however you want to distinguish them. That's what I was thinking going into this. So that opening arc with them, you know, with her and her ex-husband in the car there, I was thinking, oh, okay, they just got kidnapped. But when they started where they were taking it with her being the governor and then she's running for president and just everything they're going with her, I'm like, oh, this is going to be some cool stuff. And then they got the Harvard professor they introduced. I'm like, he has a different experience with these little aliens. So what's his deal? Is he actually insane, or was he also an abductee, or is there something different with him? So I'm really kind of curious to see if all these characters are going to come together in one connection, or if they're going to keep them separate stories, or where that's going. This was a really cool intro, really cool right out the gate to get you curious about it and kind of get your appetite, you know, kind of wet your whistle and get you thinking, this could be interesting.
Darrell?
Well, for me, I kind of knew the direction already because I had an interview with, you know, on Comic Book Roadshow, we interviewed Paul Cornell about the book. So
what episode was that too? Because I've listened to it, but for our listeners, that way they can refer back to it, because it's definitely something they should listen to if they got a chance to check out this book. Paul Cornell I'm a big Paul Cornell fan, and that's definitely an episode of your podcast they should check out.
Episode 163 of Comic Book Roadshow they can check out.
And you've been doing a series on there of great interviews for anybody that hasn't checked out Comic Book Roadshow, of great interviews with a lot of writers from DC. That you've gotten on there. So for any DC fans that are out there, there's really terrific interviews that you guys have been doing on that show. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just you were mentioning your show, and I think it's really important that people know right now that they should really be checking out those episodes.
Oh, well, thanks a lot. Yeah, if you especially if you're into Batman right now and you want the upcoming backup stories that'll be going on, the co-writer with that is James Tynan. And we interviewed him on episode 162. So he kind of goes into what that, you know, would entail, and what the annual he's going to be writing, the Batman annual that's going to feature Mr. Freeze in it. So if you want to check that out, you know, it's available.
It's funny the way this story started in the beginning with, you see those kind of blobs in the beginning, and I thought those were going to be the aliens. And I don't know, I guess part of me was wondering that, like, where it says stay asleep, are they having, is she being contacted by them mentally? Like, are they trying to in some way protect her or guide her? because I feel like her and the husband, part of their what's keeping them connected is their connection to the aliens. Are you guys getting those undertones there?
It seems subliminal, like they left these subliminal messages that are set off by certain things that happen.
Well, when you look at it, you have the aliens are kind of, in the way, kind of creepy, and by the end of the book, she's taking it that they're invading Earth, and then you have the other side, the flip side, the Harvard guy who's having these open and friendly conversations with his aliens. Now, just because I always look for the twist, I always look for the flip-flop, I'm thinking the aliens that look creepy, that look like they're maybe invading, are actually trying to protect the human race, while the other ones who look friendly and look nice, they're the actual invaders. And that's where I'm wondering if this is going to go, where we find out that her aliens, who she thinks are the bad guys, who she thinks are, hostile and doing, who did crazy stuff to her, really are trying to help her. And she just can't piece all the pieces together and realize what's going on.
I don't trust any of them right now. It's just so, like, the way that they're putting these messages in her head and her husband's head or ex-husband, and just I don't know. I like it because the way that Paul Cornell is writing it is as if you don't know what's going on. Am I going crazy? Am I reading it wrong? How am I supposed to, if it's signals that you're supposed to be getting to do something, or are they good? Are they evil? I mean, I'm as confused reading this as she is going through it.
Who beat Michael up? Like, in the beginning of the book, he's beaten up. I really get the impression that, like, at least Michael, I wonder if a lot of his issues that, like, they're trying to protect her from are that maybe Michael knows more of the truth than she does? Or maybe he went crazier from it than she did? I don't know.
I think he fought back. Well, I think he had a bad temper anyway, because they mentioned that, he always had a bad temper, and he always was looking for a fight politically. They were activists. But I think that when they were abducted, I think he fought. I think he fought the aliens.
And you think about it, it's kind of a natural, even when they bring in the political commentator and the strategist talking about how he is a blue-collar guy, and you start thinking, what's your blue-collar guy going to do? They're going to rage against the machine. They're going to actually try to fight back, and especially if, and we don't know if he's got any honorable intentions towards her, but he may have been fighting to try to protect her, but again, we don't know what she's remembering or what she's seeing. So there is a question behind it. On one hand, we have kind of a surface where it looks like, okay, this guy's scum and he's, been abusive to her and bad things should happen to him. But we have this whole question being raised whether, is what we're seeing true? What is real? What is not real? What has been manipulated through alien technology, and what is just simply, post-traumatic stress, where it's blocking the actual, occurrence of the violence, occurrence of the abuse. We don't know the exact lines of what's going on and where everybody stands yet. And I like the fact that we do have this mystery, but it's not just It's not like an open-ended mystery. We're getting these specific pieces of it. We're getting possible story arcs where this could go. It can go this way, or hey, guess what? We're going to get a swerve a completely different way that you never saw coming. There's a lot of anticipation on where this story can go for me.
Yeah, and did he even ever abuse her? Because we get the whole thing where they're telling her that, they're implying to her to make her think that he abused you.
Right.
Or
is it the one time, and they just want you to think that he abused you this time to cover up that we took you? Or has it been the deal the entire time?
Or is it that she was discovered in a way that made it look like that? Mm-hmm. Similar to how he woke up.
Yeah, you figure if her people find her and she looks like she's been smacked around a little bit, or there's a little bit of blood, they're immediately going to think the guy sitting next to her must have hit her, must have did the backhand.
And if she says, I don't remember, of course they're going to think you're abused, so you're lying to either protect him or you're embarrassed. and you just don't want to talk about it, so you're not going to believe her.
Am I the only one that wants to take a Professor Kidd class?
Oh, no. I think he'd be kind of interesting.
I'm sorry, Darrell. I didn't realize you had more to say. I didn't mean to cut
No. You
I was
made me stop when I thought about it. Like, would I want to take his class or not?
I looked at looking at this guy talking to these naked, like. Now, I think that's legit. He's really seeing that, or do you think he's crazy?
No, I think he's really saying it.
No, yeah, I'm with you. Those things are actually there, and those are aliens, and that's why I'm thinking we got two different camps. We got the Greys and we got these guys, and I don't know who's the bad guy yet.
And I also think he's crazy.
Could that be the aliens, though, doing the subliminal thing with him that they're doing with the governor, but in a different way? Or do you really think they're genuinely different?
It could definitely be just because maybe he's more receptive of it, or maybe he's got a better tuning or something. It could be something like that. But I'm thinking just because they're so distinctively different, we have two separate groups. Maybe this group did more creepy stuff to the guy, whereas the other group won't actually take that extra step. Won't go beyond. They have like an ethical boundary that they're not going to cross, whereas this group does, or vice versa. Maybe these guys are the good guys, and they're able to have a better connection with the humans because of it. I don't know. There's either way. I don't know which one it is, but I'm confident we have two separate alien groups here.
I'm thinking. Actually, I was thinking that it might be the same group, but they're going about it differently because he wants to believe in aliens. So if they use a little, they make them look a little pretty and, slightly, talk to them, he'd be all into it. Now, her, on the other hand, she does not want to believe in aliens. She's practical. This is not what she's into, but yet she's in a place of power. She's rising to a place of power, and maybe they need to, do something to her, but they have to take a different tack with her and make her forget, and maybe use the insecurities with her ex-husband, against her to kind of, and it worked for a little bit, but I don't know. It makes me think that the bait and switch is that they're both the same aliens.
And I wouldn't have an issue with that. I actually would be okay with if that plays out because, as I said, there's probably could be a whole another option that neither one of us thought of, and they're going to drop that on us. That's the neat thing behind you have a mystery comic, because this really is a kind of, it's not your traditional crime and mystery type of story, but we do have a really neat unfolding mystery that they're giving us these little clues and they're giving us these little tastes of it, and I want to see this play out.
I love it. I like that this book, for a first issue, it's written so well because it makes me ask all these questions. And we don't get the answer. We do get a little something here and there, but we really don't know. And it's just fun to see what I already like her.
Yeah.
Like, it's a done deal. Like, they made me like her already just from even doing the speech. It kind of let you know a little bit more about her and her family. Even though the speech was for something else, it also was a good way of letting us know what she's been through and the political process also what she's dealing with. So I'm in. Like, I want to know what journey she's going on. I really want to know what they did to this woman. I really want to know what their plan is. And even with the ex-husband, is he a victim also? Because if he hasn't been abusing her, they've pretty much ruined his reputation and his life.
Oh, definitely. And I like we got a cool political story coming out of this as well. Mm-hmm. This is some neat side of showing her, which, we get this, the first strategist coming in, who hard-nosed, hitting him, just bam, dropping right there. She's going to shake things up and not, treat her with kid gloves. And I can imagine that someone in her position would have that type of style and that attitude. This is what they're going to go with. They're going to go with the victim who fought back, and but they're not going to make the husband look like a bad guy, because guess what? That's going to turn off your voters as well. We need to let them know what happened, but without ever you saying it happened. We want them to figure it out and them to support you and be your savior. We want them to not only want you to, to cheer for you when you succeed, but also to say, hey, let's rock and roll. Let's keep this going. It's, for me, this was a great, just a cool political story intermixed with this alien mystery, intermixed with some very interesting, delves into human, psyche.
It's funny, when the other possibility you guys were talking about with those aliens, I was thinking, what if, another possibility is that it's a faction within that group? Like, it still is the same group, but it's like an offshoot faction that came, because it's saucer country, so what if it's another saucer from those aliens, too, that could be playing in there? Where they've got a different modus operandi, they've got a different agenda. I don't know. There's a lot of different options with this that I'm finding that's really interesting. As the story goes on, I really like how torn both the ex-husband and the governor are when it comes to their relationship. Like they almost protest too much. Mm-hmm. I am so fascinated. First of all, I've got to commend the pacing of dropping us into their lives at this point, because it's gotten me so interested in knowing the backstory. Like, I want to know how they wound up here in the absolute worst way. And I think that's a real critical key to what I'm really digging about this first issue here, is the fact that in this first issue, you've taken and given us enough information about both, shown us enough turmoil in their lives. In the governor's case, you're seeing somebody who's got a career opportunity to really make a huge advancement here, to be a candidate, to be, the one. And in spite of all that happening, you've got this situation going on with her ex, and then the aliens on top of it, and a potential, I might as well just go there, a potential invasion on the way. Here's my question with these subliminal messages. Are they being knocked out? Can they be taken over? How deep does this go for them? When they were asleep there, what caused them to be asleep? Those are things I have question about, because is the governor compromised?
All right.
Well, technically, yes. This, in all logical standards, she should not be the president, because she is not in complete control of her faculties. She's not completely there. Now, that's looking at a logical explanation of a person who's been abducted by aliens and who believes they're setting up an invasion of the country. So, can you say the word logically when you're throwing out that sentence? But within this confines, we can, and that was something when she has that moment with her longtime friend and her new political advisor, and she tells him that. That, for me, was probably the selling point of the book. Just because I'm going through this and I'm enjoying the story, and then she just drops that bombshell on him. Oh, yeah, I was abducted by aliens and we're being invaded.
Like, why would they will think she's insane.
Exactly. This is the person that you're pushing to be the president of the United States, and you now think they're insane. What the heck do you do? How do you handle it? Do you keep backing the person? Do you, separate yourself from her? Because if she gets in there, or she becomes a viable candidate, and you're connected to her, and this comes out, you're ruined. You're destroyed. It's not just about her career, her political career. It's about these people who are connected to her and are attached to her. If you're sitting there saying, hey, this is the right candidate, this is the person who I think should be in the White House, and it comes out that she thinks she's been abducted by aliens, you're done. That's it. You'll never work in politics again.
Now, here's the question. When you see that man with her in the black and white sequence, the dream sequence of hers, that's a memory, right?
I think so.
And
it's either a memory or it's a twisting of a memory of her time with the abduction. Right. I'm thinking the aliens tweaked her memory so she sees that human face as opposed to the regular, alien body.
What is that he's holding? Is that an alien baby or a regular baby?
I was thinking it's her baby that she lost. I'm thinking she and Michael had a baby and she lost the kid somehow, either through the experiments or just through general life or something like that.
Or they created the baby by using,
Right.
DNA from both of them and created that baby.
Now, here's my question, though. What if that guy's not an alien? What if they brainwashed her to cover up things? Like, what if that's on the human end?
Oh, again, that could definitely be a possibility. Yeah.
No, there's no way we can deny any of these theories that we're doing. Like, that's what's fun about reading this book, is that in the discussion you can come up with all these theories. We don't know. We really don't know. Because
when she's got that protection in the beginning, who's covering for her, I kept wondering, is that guy, especially my second read-through, is that guy an alien? Is that guy a human? If he's human, is he linked with the guy in the dream sequence?
Right.
And, part of this whole cover-up thing. And are both of them aliens? Are both of them human? And the one thing I really like, that's the mystery I was talking about. I'm not looking for, definitive set answers on all that right now. And then the other possibility, I was like, when you see her on the bed, did that baby come from inside her?
That's the question I had. Like, do you see blood? There is blood.
Yeah.
But look where she's clutching. Is that what he did? It must be. What else could it all? So, what was implanted in her? Because I can't help but question, is that some kind of hybrid baby?
Well, that definitely could be, a alien baby test tube cross pollination freakazoid baby thingy, or I don't know. It's because seeing her hold the belly region and just that's just a natural defense that a lot of psychological reports have said that either women who have had and or have lost a baby, when they're scared, will instinctively go down there, or when they're upset or they're stressed out.
Now, I love her speech when she's giving that, because it touches on some real issues that are contemporary, and it set up something that I'm like, wow, what a great, this would make a great TV show, because I could see this being like a Lost, kind of style show, where you're getting kind of this kind of mystery unfolding in front of you, but then real issues that all of a sudden lead into this Americans are aliens, and that triggers her memory. When she's talking about illegal aliens and all that kind of stuff, and how, her family was like that, and, look at the opportunities she's in her life, and the inspiration that comes from all that, which is great. But just using the word aliens starts triggering this memory. And, realizing that she's been, the question is, she's been compromised. She's realizing that she's been compromised or abducted, and that there's an invasion coming. And what are the people around her going to say? Because this is a political nightmare. Both of the people she's talking to would not want what she's saying being revealed.
Nope. She can't say this. But, and it's so... If there is an alien invasion, I think I would want the president to be the one to know about it, if there is one. Because they can do something about it.
Unless they're compromised.
But that's the thing. Even her being compromised might be a good thing,
right?
If she could remember, if she can get back these memories, because there's no telling when she came from that podium how much stuff does she actually remember to make her come back down there and say that to them, that we're being invaded. How much did she remember? Did most of it come back to her, and that's why she said what she did, or did just pieces of it come back and she thinks that that's what it is that happened to her? It's or did the aliens want her to know this? Did they want her to remember at this particular time? It's just, I don't know. I'm confused. I don't know what.
But it's a good confusion, though.
Yeah, great.
It's that cool confusion of the mystery unfolding and the story being told. And you're like, hey, what about this? What about this? It's this one. You really gets you thinking off page, and that's kind of a fun part about it.
Yeah, I don't want to figure this story out ahead of time. I don't want to know. I want to enjoy it as it's going through and learn little things here and there, maybe figure some stuff out. But that's what's fun, about these. All comics don't need to be that way, but, this comic written this way is making it, that's what's making it fun for me.
Yep.
Is trying to figure it out.
Well, it's funny. We talked about Ferris on the last episode, and when you jump to this, it couldn't be two more different titles. Yet there was things I just so much enjoyed about both, and I really like that this is unique in its feel. I love that we were all like kind of jumping to say, and that confusion isn't a bad thing. We were all kind of on the same vibe there. I already feel like we're. I mean, I think I'm very safe saying this. We've all become very quickly very protective of this book. One issue in.
I want it to finish. I do too. I want Paul Cornell to have the time to actually finish the story out because I don't want it rushed. I don't want it ended. Like it's something I want to make it to the journey. I want to go through the journey, and then I want to get to the end, and I want to know what is going on. And that's something that we don't, when we're in the now type of generation, a lot of times people complain about the journey of the story and they want to know everything by issue 2.
Yep.
Like, if you don't tell me by issue 2, this book is going nowhere. But there's so much that they put in here. I mean, you know about her, you know about her husband, you know about the her handler, who worked with her father, the security. I mean, all these pieces of the puzzle that they're putting in this, putting in the first issue, it's there, and then he can play with each part and develop certain things to let you, see, where he wants to go. And that's what's so fun about comics. I mean, I think people I even heard a criticism with this book where there was just no big cliffhanger at the end of the issue. And my thing is, why would you want every book you read to have the same beats throughout the story? I don't need Alien to come busting out of her stomach at the end of this issue for me to want to read issue 2. It was good enough just for her to go through this thing and then have this flashback and then tell, her people that we're going to be invaded. Now, what the heck does that mean? I want to know that. I don't need a whole. This is not where they come through the ship and they start, shooting ray guns. And this is not that type of story. It's a subtle, fun, and this story touches on the character moments more than, and the effects of what they did more than you seeing, jumping on a spaceship and shooting phasers at each other. It's a different type of story.
Yeah, it reminds me of books like you mentioned wanting it to continue. Vinyl Underground, when I read that, was a series that it was a Vertigo series that I just really, really dug, and it got cut short. I've been loving the series iZombie, and I'm sad to see that one's going. Mm-hmm. Books like this are in that vein. Vertigo has throughout its reign had a lot of very special titles. I love things like Why the Last Man. I'm loving Fables, Preacher, Sandman, books like that. But there's been smaller titles that I've really loved. I like, Goddess is one of the ones that kind of gets lost in the shuffle. That was by Garth Ennis, also the writer of Preacher, and I really enjoyed that. There's been a number of smaller, lesser things that people don't catch as much because they haven't been as big name. And Vertigo has been like one of those very talented stomping grounds of some very creative, unique comics that just kind of show you that the medium of comics can tell any kind of story.
Yeah.
And this is one of those that the special nature of this one is really cool. I can't wait for. Dominic Laveau came out this week. I haven't had a chance to read that one yet, but that's one that I can't wait to read as well. Was it Voodoo Child? Dominic Laveau, Voodoo Child? Am I reading that right? Something Voodoo. It was something Voodoo related. So please, but that one has me completely excited. And then there's one more after that we're going to
and for people that don't know, I mean, there's been an outcry for female voices in comics. And you're getting that with that book, like that. They're women write. I mean, there are books with women writers in it. It's just the point that you have to find it. You have to support them when they come out, because if you don't, it makes it harder for them to get another job.
Yeah. It's here's the funny part. I guess I've always been the type of reader that I don't look at, when I approach a concept, at whether the writer's a male or female first. I look at the concept first. Now, I will say this, once I'm into the concept and the writer becomes a name for me, male or female, I will then follow them to the ends of the earth, unless, I read something that doesn't connect with me, and then I'll be like, well, maybe, not everything they do is for me. But that's a very rare occurrence. Usually if somebody has a voice and I've read one of their titles and I dig it, like, Paul Cornell from his Doctor Who books, he's had me ever since. And I got to be honest with you, this is a guy, he delivers on everything he does. His name's on something, I grab it, and I immediately find something that I enjoy from it. There's a connection there. But I refer to the same thing with Gail Simone all the time. I have never, though, approached a series and, cared, and I mean this in sincerely a really good way, if the writer's a male or female, the artist is a male or female. It's the quality of what's being delivered. And I think that's really an important distinction. And I think that always should be the case. It should be, an even playing field, male, female, whatever. Get the most talented people on the books and we'll read them. That's really what should be happening. Yep. The end result, the people with the ideas and to build creative teams. I don't know. It's you got like an Amanda Connor running around doing the crazy stuff, Nicholas Scott, and doing all that kind of crazy stuff that they're doing out there with art and I don't know, storytelling. I think nowadays just benefits from
you want talent to shine no matter what. But when you do, and I understand being a person of color, that I do want to see more of us in creative teams. Sure. I know I do want that voice to be recognized, but I also want good voices to be recognized. I just don't want someone to just get a job just because that's who they are, and it's not good work, because that doesn't reflect well. It could, in fact, it could be worse. It could be harder for the next person that's trying to come up in the business to get a job like that. So if it's good, if it's somebody like that and they're doing good work, I say you should support it, and shout it out, and do everything you can to get people involved in the project, because point blank, if like Nicola Scott, people went to Nicola Scott when they saw her art and liked it. They told other people. Every time she did a book, that book sold pretty well, which makes it easy for her to get another, to get the next project that she's going to be working on. Gail Simone's the same thing. She wrote good stories, so when they came out, people bought those stories. That makes it easier that Gail Simone has not been off, had been off of any books for years. How long has she been? She's had an ongoing book for how many years now?
Oh my gosh. She was doing Birds before we started doing the show.
Right.
So it's been over 6 years.
And before that, it was Deadpool.
Right.
So
I was just talking about on the DC end, yeah.
Right. She's consistently had work because people like what she did, and went out and bought it. And when I see Gail Simone write something, I go buy it. I follow the creator, and like you were talking earlier, I follow what she does when I see her name on something, because she's pretty much not ever let me down in terms of writing a good story. And that's what people, need to do. If you know someone's doing good work, Amy Reeder, I'm kind of sad that she's not going to continue on Batwoman, because now I know how talented she is because I saw her work. Now the next thing she does, I'm going to support it.
I loved her on Batwoman. I thought that was a great marriage, the way that story was being told on there. I loved her Madame Xanadu work, too. That was what really got it for me. Madame Xanadu was really, I heard Matt Wagner was going to be on there. I didn't know who Amy Reeder was.
I didn't know either.
But, oh my gosh, Madame Xanadu was so good, and that artwork in there was fantastic that she became a name. That I've got to be honest with you, though, that I guess I'm the kind of comic reader. Like, you talked about creators of color, you talked about, female creators, stuff like that. I've never, if I look at a concept, I've never looked at the creator and said, if it was a creator of color, well, that might not be a book for me. If it was a female creator, that might not be a book for me. it's either I recognize the creator or I don't. If I don't recognize the creator and I'm interested in the concept, I'm picking up the book. It doesn't matter what their background is, male, female, race, anything like that. I don't care. It just doesn't, enter into the whole thing for me. Because, I guess I don't do that much research into the background of them. I'm a concept person first when I don't know. And then I'm a creator person after that. Because when I look through previews, that thing's like a tome. So I'm not like sitting there looking through and worrying about what anybody's background is. I'm looking at, which I think that to me is what I should be doing when it comes to the work they put out. Because the talented creators, no matter what their background is, they put that work out there and they put there's that idea that's thrown in your face. And that's their hook. That's their baby. That's their bread and butter. That's the thing that, like, they're delivering their talent in that moment. And that's what they're trying to hook you in with. And that's what I'm all about when it's something new. And then if I like it, I get to know who they are. And like you said, Darrell, I'll follow them to the ends of the earth. I don't care what their background is. Who cares? It's funny nowadays, you think as an advanced society, that we wouldn't even be having this discussion anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think this is a medium. Comics, really, it should be an open medium where it's the best and brightest and most talented. Because I have trouble fathoming that myself, that there's even still those type of issues. And I know there is. I'm not being naive. I don't mean it that way. But I guess I a lot of times get so focused on what my approach is to when I read comics or books or novels or go see films or whatever. I've never gone to see a film and worried about, who the director was or who wrote it or things like that. I see a trailer and I'm going to look at it and go, that's for me. And, I'm pleasantly surprised after the fact, when I find out who, the director is, whatever, and I end up following their work to something else. And it's the same thing with comics and with books and things. So I don't fathom nowadays that there's still those issues.
I wish they were. I remember reading Dwayne McDuffie when he was coming onto the book. Yeah. And I remember they had 3 black characters. And then all the rest were white characters that but they were like 3. I think there was Vixen. It was I think it was actually it wasn't. It was before McDuffie. It was what was the writer before McDuffie? Meltzer. When Meltzer had Cyborg and somebody. He had Vixen and somebody else he had on the cover. And then they said that they hired McDuffie. And then I remember reading, which is a mistake, but I remember reading on a message board thing under the caption, the whole thing was, is this affirmative action in comics? And it's like, wow, when you see 3 or just 2 or 3 black characters and then you see another 5 white characters, that's why is that even a question?
Well, first of all, it kind of goes back to what you said earlier, Darrell. Mm-hmm. My opinion with characters, and this is my genuine opinion with this kind of thing, is I've never cared in a book, the color or the background of characters, whether there's more females on a team or more males on a team. We've talked about Storm on this show before from the X-Men. One of the characters who I think, just growing up, was one of my absolute favorite characters, won me over on a female being a team leader to one of my favorite teams. I got that book monthly and adored it. But I think the only way to make any characters work is when a writer has ideas for those characters and a passion for those characters and throw them in there. And who cares what their background is? I thought the Meltzer run was terrific. I thought the characters he put on there were all excellent. I loved Vixen in that book. Vixen was a standout. When you were going through the list of characters, I thought the use of Vixen in that run was particularly good.
Yeah.
And I it's a character that I miss genuinely because I grew to like her in that run. I didn't read a whole lot of the Detroit League back when she was on the team then. So, but that, I'll be honest with you, that run made me go back and read some of those issues just because I wanted to read more of the character. Yeah. And I think that's important when a creator, that's a sign that what was done with that character it was enough that it made me interested. I wanted to know more. I cared to know more about the character. I loved her miniseries. I thought that was great. That kind of stuff that's only pure ignorance when people throw that out there. Like, how do you look at a cover of a comic and throw that out there? I don't get it. I've just never had those feelings. To me, it's like, cool, new characters. Let's read them and see what they're using. I think the only time where those comments, there's any validity to those comics, or what you touched on earlier, Darrell, it's when they're just thrown in for the sake of throwing them in to have them there. And I don't think that's good for anybody. That's not good for the character's white, the character's female. If the character is a character of color, it doesn't matter. I think, or if the character's like the Martian Manhunter, for example, to throw an alien character on the team just because it might be interesting to have an alien there. If you don't have a story for any character, you shouldn't put them on a team. It's one of my issues with death in comics a lot of times. Do I care if they bring back characters that have died? No. I care when they bring back a character that's died, and it fits this. It's the same theme. When they don't have a story for that character. Okay, great, you've done this big monumental bringing back this character. There's nothing for them. The same thing goes when we're talking about, various different characters. I think some of the lesser-known characters, which, it's kind of a broad generalization of what we're talking about, if you're going to bring them to the forefront, you need to have writers who aren't being forced to use those characters. They're utilizing them because they have stories to tell. And by the same token, you shouldn't force writers to not use characters because they're lesser-known characters if they have good stories to tell with them, because that's how you build an attach rate to those characters. It's the good stories. And I think team books are the way to do it. Because a lot of times a team book is where you can have your heavy hitters on there, and you can build a fan base. I mean, I know that there's all kinds of controversy whether or not people like the James Robinson run on Justice League. I had no clue who Congorilla was in that book. I really dug what he was doing with Congorilla and the Blue Starman. Now, I knew the Blue Starman, so that maybe that increased my attach rate. But Congorilla, when I heard I was like, he's putting who on the team? What the heck is Congorilla? And I ended up loving that concept. But the reason why was Robinson wasn't throwing Congorilla in just to, throw, some crazy character from the past in there. He threw that character on there because he was genuinely interested in using Congorilla. And I don't know, I think any character throughout comics, whether they're, and I would even go on the big end characters. You throw a character on a team that you have no story for, those characters are going to drift quickly in the background, and then you're not going to see them again.
All right.
I think John Stewart goes through this a lot because I think we're seeing him come more and more to the forefront because they found interesting stories for John Stewart. You've got writers now who are they've got ideas for John Stewart. They're using John Stewart. And I think he is I think he's somebody who's fared, I'll argue, he's fared better in animation than he has in the comics. And I think we're starting to get some. But I will say right now, I'm loving what they're doing with him right now. What an interesting character and a standout character because he's been distinguished now as being very different than Kyle, very different than Guy, very different than Hal. And I think that's really, really important with the use of characters like John Stewart. I think the storytelling's there. I'm a big believer in that. But I think he's fared, to me, his animated appearances, he is the Green Lantern of choice when it comes to the animated Justice League in my eyes. I think he's very identifiable. I think anybody who watched that run of that series, oh my gosh, did he have some great stories. The stuff with him and Hawkgirl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, love story.
Oh, was so great. You got me. Yeah. Well, and you got me I'm a Hawkman junkie. Mm-hmm. I was believing it.
Me too. I totally believed it, and the way that it was written with such, they took time and made their own continuity and developed it. There were more people that knew about John Stewart being Green Lantern than people did about Hal Jordan because just people were just not reading comics and as much anymore. But they're just more people looking at the cartoon.
Yeah, yeah. I take a look at. I love seeing the DC animation block right now. I do think those are avenues to me, I think animation is a little bit more than live action, an avenue into the comics. Because I don't think it's such a stretch to jump from animation into comics. But maybe that's my own biases because that's what got me into comics as a kid. So I don't know. There could be some elements of that too. I don't know. I think that block's great. I love seeing the shorts now that they're putting on there. I think that's a great opportunity for them to put lesser known characters. I think that I was reading on the Source blog they're doing an Animal Man short. If I read that correctly, I'll have to go back and check the Source blog. But I thought unless they were teasing that, and I just misunderstood it. I would love to see something like that. I thought the Plastic Man one was hysterical.
Well, it's something like all of us comics fans that are still here. We're in almost our 40s and over, and still buying comics.
Yeah,
we started looking at cartoons.
Yeah.
Like there was not a Saturday that did not have a block of cartoons going on, and then at one point they just stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they shifted to live action stories and the happy joy stories and just all that. I'm like, come on, just go back to the cartoons, just what it should be like.
Yeah,
wait.
And so
the
I'm not surprised.
Happy. No. I'm just going off of what Jim was saying. I apologize, Darrell. The happy joy stories, wasn't that Ren and Stimpy?
Well, I'm not talking Ren and Stimpy. I'm just talking those cutesy little the marshmallow puff stories and stuff like that. That's what I'm talking about when I say happy joy.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, these goody where it's learning to share and care and learning this nice life lesson, and I'm like, come on.
What channel are you watching?
Cool story.
What channel are you watching?
I don't know. The one day I turned it on and I saw this thing. I was like, what's this? It annoyed me. But this was many years ago.
I would love to sit and watch television with you and see you get all crotchety. This puffy marshmallow thing. Like, what are you talking about? I want to see what you were watching now. I'm fascinated by this.
I mean, we didn't even get good cartoons. I mean, the cartoons we watched that we love so much, they were not. You rewatch them now, they were not necessarily so good, but they were the gateway. Like Spider-Man and Amazing Friends, and all the various Superman and cartoons, and the Justice League and Super Friends, and I mean, looking back at some of those cartoons, I'm like, wow, they did not care how they did these cartoons.
Well, you know what? A lot of them didn't have the budget. I thought that I will say this. I respect a lot of the storytelling they did in classic cartoons with very limited budgets. That 60s Spider-Man cartoon, I got that set on the DVDs, and I was watching it through again. And it was funny, after I got through the first couple and started realizing how much canned animation footage they reused for web swinging sequences and stuff like that, they really got a lot of story in, even though they reused a lot of animation due to budgeting.
Yeah, they had no money.
So I always thought that in the Filmation stuff from DC, same thing like that, there was a lot of stuff where the motion that I think we're so used to nowadays, where we see full range of motion, which obviously takes so much longer to produce. I think that when you go and take a look back at what they were able to do in the past with reusing footage and stuff like that, I thought was amazing, because there was a lot of cartoons that I thought did a great job of, and I didn't notice it as a kid. Like in the old Filmation Batman cartoons, I didn't notice that it was the same.
We didn't care.
Yeah.
We didn't care. We just knew Batman was jumping in the car in the Batmobile, and Wonder Woman was getting in the invisible jet, and Batman took out another flamethrower to break out of those special handcuffs, and another, out of his utility belt. I mean, that's just what we knew. And then we went to the store, we saw that comic, we pointed and said, please, Mom, can I have that, please? And we would buy it, and that was the gateway. That's how we knew these characters. But there was a long period of time where kids had no superhero cartoons going on TV, and I think comics have suffered because of it.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And that's something I think that I'm glad that we're seeing them back. I think having them in animation block is a good thing. I think one of the weak areas where I still want to see it, I want to see more emphasis on. I'd love to see trailers for the comics interspersed in there.
Yeah.
Because I think there's some opportunity to do that. I don't think they figured out, like, to me, the Green Lantern cartoon, yeah, they can't show the blood on the TV and stuff like that, or they don't, they're trying not to. But there's a comic that's going to be going along with it, but I also don't think there'd be anything wrong with doing a trailer for the current DC. I really don't. I think you can do it, a TV trailer for that. And I'm sorry, nowadays, with the video game media that kids are exposed to, but there's also this premise, I'm sorry, that block is not just kids.
No.
So,
Young Justice is I think it's a lot more in the Justice League Unlimited vein than it is the like the for example, the Teen Titans Go vein, or the Brave and the Bold.
Jim, was I right in remembering? But we had explained by one of our listeners, and I'm thinking back, that there's some kind of issue with advertising that stuff on a program. That would
and I don't remember the exact details, but there is copyright laws, or there is some
because of kids, because
of kids, right? You can't. You can't openly target the comic or something like that to the children or something. It's a child protection law. There's something with that.
If you like this, go read that comic. Comic, I don't think you can do that. Isn't that what the issue is?
Yeah, it's like the G.I. Joe cartoon that we all watched and enjoyed. They didn't advertise the G.I. Joe action figures on that cartoon. But because the cartoon itself was an advertisement for the toys, but they couldn't take that one extra step. Said, hey, if you enjoy watching Snake Eyes, you can own your own Snake Eyes action figure. They couldn't do that direct connection. It has to be an indirect connection.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that was. I remember, guys. I used to say that on the show a lot about the trailers. Actually, the same thing that I said, and I'm like kind of correcting myself now when I say it, because I remember one of our listeners, might have been Mike Thomas.
I cannot remember who. I apologize.
Yeah, I can't remember who. He had called in, and it was very interesting. It's standing out to me now about how there's legal reasons why you can't do that, and that does make sense as to why there's not more advertising there. But see, then I guess on the same channel that does that block, why wouldn't you later in the day advertise the comics?
Right, because they repeat it.
Yeah, you could do that. Not during the actual cartoon, but in between. If whatever time I don't know, I DVR them, I forget what time they're on. But let's say they're on between 9 and 10, and then they repeat them again at 8 and 9 in the evening. Somewhere during the day in between there, when you're advertising for the show, why can't you advertise for the comics as well somewhere along there? I don't know.
Right.
It's that would be something I would love to see, just to see if they would get some readership from that. I always want new people to read the comic medium, but that's just me.
Holy caffeine!
Once again, I want to thank friend of the show, Darrell Taylor, for joining us. And Darrell, why don't you tell us some things that are coming up on your podcasts?
Right now, let me see. What do we have? You hit me right on the spot.
Sorry.
Well, I know we have interviews that we've already had coming up, but we have a lot of image writers coming on that we're going to deal with, and but like we said earlier in the show, we do have previous DC writers such as Paul Cornell and Joshua Hale Fiekhoff and James Tynan, and if you even look back, we even have Paul Levitz, who we've interviewed, and to hear him talk about the Legion, and he just talked about his whole history from when he was doing the fanzines and up until now, which is very fun to hear him. I always like to hear, people with that much history in comics, talk about what they went through growing up and working in comics and all those, legends that they met and were friends with and stuff like that. So it's all on taylornetwork.wordpress.com, and you can check out all of that there, or you can go to the forum for geeks where everything is up on the forums. We have forums for No Apologies, Comic Book Roadshow, Nothing's On, and you can also check us out on Yeah, I Said It, DC Noise, and The Fixer's Hideout.
All right. Well, Darrell, as always, thank you for joining us, buddy.
Thank you, and congratulations on 6 years.
Yeah. Actually, you're on our 6-year show. We're actually recording this on the 23rd, which is today is our 6-year anniversary. So Jim and I wanted to really badly record tonight because of the fact that we put out our first show 6 years ago today.
Yes.
That's amazing. I mean, that right there shows that just how good the show is and how you guys you do a great job every week. And it's a show that celebrates comics. I mean, every episode you truly celebrate what's great about comics.
We've been very lucky over the last 6 years with the audience base that we've got, the friends we've made along the way, of people who find value of some sort in what we do. So whether people are casual listeners or listen to every episode, we really appreciate the time that people have given to the podcast. So it's been a lot of fun. But it is, I mean, as with anything, when you put work into doing something like this, the only way that it's worth it is if you have people who actually want to listen to it. So we thank all of you listening for and for any of our friends of the show along the way, podcasting wise and creator wise, and just across the board. Anybody who's supported the show, we really, really appreciate it. It's been when you were saying you can't believe it's been 6 years. I can't believe it's 6 years. I had to do a double take. I'm like, really? Where did that time go? Which is a sign we're having fun. So, thanks again, Darrell.
Oh, thank you guys.
Once again, sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, Batgirl Hardcover Volume 1, The Darkest Reflection. Regularly $22.99, 50% off, only $11.49. Over at InStockTrades.com, remember to check out the Knightfall series. All 3 volumes are available at 40% off each. We're going to be starting that off next week. Remember, orders of $50 or more will give you free shipping. And Jim, I can't wait till next week for Knightfall Part 1. Big, huge story. I haven't read it in years. So it's a lot of it, I remember the basic premise of the story, but a lot of it feels very new to me because it's been so long since I've read it. Are you having that experience with it as you've been going
big time.
through? Yeah.
Big time, because I don't think I read the entire story. I think I just read the highlights of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I'm sitting there going, huh? Wait, and it was stuff that I'm like, wait a minute. So I don't think I actually read the whole thing. I think I just read the big events.
I read every little tiny thing of it, and there was a couple Legends of Dark Knight issues that were tied into it and stuff like that. I remember reading every little bit of that at the time, and there's so much of it that I'm like, oh, I don't remember that at all, which I'm liking. I mean, it really feels fresh, like I'm reading a new story again, so I'm hoping for anybody listening that's going to be getting ready to join us for that experience that you're having the same, if you read it before, you're having that same kind of fresh opportunity with it. It's real timely with the fact that movie's coming out this summer with it. So, Jim, I want to thank you, buddy, I know we're doing our 300th episode next week, but this really, for us, it's been 6 years together of doing this, and I could not have done this with anybody else. Thank you for 6 years of doing this show with me.
Hey, thank you, man. Yeah, you brought me back into comics. I wasn't reading. Well, I wasn't a reader. I completely walked away from comics, and I enjoyed like a comic book movie or occasional cartoon here or there, but I wasn't getting the monthlies. I wasn't reading any of this stuff. And how long did it take to get me back in? I started off borrowing your issues so we could do the show, and then I started with that
was a joke for a while too.
Yeah, well, I started off. Then I had like a $20 monthly budget.
Right.
And that $20 turned into, I got a $20 weekly budget. And next thing you know, you're like, so what comics aren't you getting? Well, I think I'm getting the whole line now. And it just, as I
you weren't working
back in.
Wait, Jim, you weren't working initially when we started the show, right? Am I remembering correctly?
Yeah, and I was unemployed, and that's one of the reasons I jumped at the opportunity to do the show. Because you announced that we were watching wrestling, and you're like, hey, I'm thinking about doing it. I'm like, oh, I'm in on that because I had a lot of free time on my hands. And
you know what, though? I'm going to be honest with you. One of the reasons why I asked you first, because for anybody that is newer to the show, the original premise was that I was like the diehard fan that was trying to see what his friends who weren't reading comics would, or either whether they're lapsed or, were new readers, what they would get into comic-wise. So I was going to change every week who was on the show. And you were the first one I asked because for people that are newer to the show, Jim's one of those guys that, like, if you need something and you ask, Jim's there. So I didn't hesitate in asking you first because I knew I'd get a yes. No, because, you're just that kind, and I mean genuinely, you are just that kind of guy. We, ball bust and stuff like that on the show all the time. But the genuine fact is there was nobody else I would have asked first other than you because I knew you would be there. And that when you're trying to do something like this and you're excited to podcast and you have a friend that like, hey, if I ask him, he is going to record and he's going to be flexible and you're just going to show up. I had no idea we would have as much fun as we did together the first time that we did it, and it would lead to just you being permanent after instantly.
Yeah, that was after that first show. I was like, man, I got to keep doing this. This is fun, and I never even had heard of podcasting, really. I didn't know what it was or anything about it. When you first told me about this, I was like, what is this? You're like, it's like talk radio, but it's, recorded and put up on the internet. I'm like, why do they call it a pod? What's that? And I literally was 100% ignorant on, podcasting and just everything that it is. So it was a really cool adventure, neat experience, and then just it became what it is now.
Yeah. So I just want to thank you again, buddy, because it's been 6 great years. I want to thank everyone who listens to the show. Like I said, people take our show in a variety of different ways. Some people listen to every episode. Some people pick and choose episodes, which means they won't be hearing this or might not be hearing this. But I really want to thank whatever capacity you listen to us in, you listen to segments or whatever. It means a lot to us to know that there's people who find value in what we do. It's why we keep coming back every week. We are a 4-a-month podcast, and we've been consistently for 6 years. There was a few times where we experiment with going 10 days between shows, where I think there was 1 or 2 months maybe where we hit 3 episodes, but then we more than made up with that in other months where we released 5 in a month. And it's what keeps you coming back when you're a podcaster, and this isn't just with our show, I think it's every podcast. It's knowing that there's people who care and they listen. There's a lot of work that goes into these shows. I'm not just talking about our show because of the length. Any podcast, whether it's a 5-minute podcast or a 5-hour podcast, which we've done before, there's a lot of work that goes into all of them. I appreciate the podcasting community and the amount of support in there. I try to obviously shout out and support our fellow podcasters as much as I possibly can. Sometimes I feel I do it well. Other times I feel I haven't done it as well as I possibly could. And I genuinely thank all of you for the shout outs and support over the years. Any creator who's given us any time of day, whether you've just listened to the show and found some value in that, or you've been able to come on the show and join us and educate us on comics and the work that you do. We genuinely appreciate that because, you're obviously on monthly deadlines and things like that trying to get your job done. And when you take time out of that to come on our show, we appreciate it. So there's just a lot of people who have, over the years, supported this little show that we've got, the little show that could, our little fanzine. And here's to another year in podcasting. So we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan. And what you do to me Athenian guard or Egyptian, working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up.